open the phone and text lines to ask about America's most consistent politician, Bernie Sanders. He's been fighting the oligarchic tendencies for decades, often sidelined by the Democratic Party establishment. But now, he and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez are pushing back and gaining steam. What do you think? It's all ahead in the first hour of Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump says he's reached a new trade deal with the United Kingdom. It's the first major trade deal reached since Trump imposed his global tariffs.
With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade. The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers.
The president's press conference is still underway at the White House. Roman Catholic cardinals are again gathered in the Vatican's Sistine Chapel. They're choosing the next pope. They did not select a pope in the first round of voting yesterday, and they sent up black smoke through the chapel's chimney to signal the results of their vote. They held another round of voting this morning, and again, they sent up black smoke, noting that no pope has been selected. NPR's Sarah Ventry is in St. Peter's Square.
We are now in the afternoon of the second day of the conclave, where 133 cardinal electors will decide who among them is the next pope. In the meantime, there are thousands of people milling around St. Peter's Square, all anxiously awaiting smoke. And there is just kind of a mood of excitement and a little bit of electricity in the crowd. Whether people are religious or not, whether they're Catholic or not, everyone I've spoken to is excited to be here for this historical moment.
NPR's Sarah Ventry at the Vatican. A new documentary identifies the Israeli soldier who allegedly killed a Palestinian-American journalist in 2022. Her killing in the Israeli-occupied West Bank sparked international condemnation and a U.S. inquiry. NPR's Daniel Estrin has more from Tel Aviv.
The film Who Killed Shireen, which debuted in New York, presents new claims in the killing of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. A 20-year-old soldier is named in the film as being responsible for her killing in the Jenin refugee camp. The soldier was killed in the same area during a military raid last year. The Israeli military says there is no definitive determination of who killed the journalist. A U.S. government review after her death determined an Israeli soldier unintentionally killed her. A former U.S. official in the film who spoke to NPR anonymously to discuss internal government deliberations says the initial U.S. assessment was that her killing was intentional and that those findings were changed. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Fresh violence is being reported between Pakistan and India today. Pakistani officials claim they shot down more than 24 Indian drones today that flew over major Pakistani cities. This comes after India fired missiles into Pakistan this week in retaliation for the killings of 26 civilians. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Real ID requirements went into effect yesterday for domestic flights. TSA agents at Logan Airport have been showing some grace towards flyers who haven't updated their identification. And at the state's RMV location, some residents have been scrambling to come into compliance. GBH's Robert Goulston reports.
There were separate security lines at Logan, one for people who have gotten their real ID and another for those who have not. But flyers in the second line were still allowed to board their planes. The Registry of Motor Vehicles says it has seen an uptick in real ID applications as the deadlines approached. Nia Pezlesi was at the Watertown RMV trying to get hers.
I didn't think I would need it because I thought I had a passport, but couldn't find my passport, so.
The RMV says so far 58% of Massachusetts ID holders are real ID compliant, and the TSA says 90% of domestic flyers have shown up with the proper documents. Robert Goulston, GBH News, 89.7.
Country star Zach Bryan has purchased a church in Lowell that will eventually become the Jack Kerouac Center. Word from the Kerouac estate is that Bryan bought the St. Jean Baptiste Church in Lowell after learning that plans to convert the church had been put on hold. Brian, who just sold his music publishing catalog for $350 million, considers Jack Kerouac an inspiration to his career. Kerouac, meanwhile, grew up in Lowell and was an altar boy at St. John's, and when he died in 1969, his funeral mass was held at that church. 69 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all. On the web at theschmidt.org. This is NPR.
He's Jim Brady. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to Boston Public Radio. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow from noon to 1, we're going to be joined by Governor Maura Healey at the library to take our questions and yours, and Boston Calling performer Latrell James for Live Music Friday, May 21st. The Attorney General is going to be with us, and May 23rd, it is Ask the Mayor with Michelle Wu. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Marjorie. First, though, we're here on Zoom with Chuck Todd. He's the host of the Chuck Toddcast, political analyst, former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press. Hello, Chuck Todd.
Well, hello there, guys.
Hey, Chuck. So we're taping this right before the show begins. So I don't know if there will be an announcement on the deal, the tariff deal between the United Kingdom and Trump.
I think it's concepts of a deal.
Yeah, concepts of a deal. So even well.
Because they're not, they really, I don't mean to rain on their parade on this. And obviously he's trying to goose the markets with this announcement, but literally they've agreed to begin negotiating, right? Like that's really what this is. It's sort of like, it's, I think they have a letter of intent, to purchase the house, but you still got to figure out, and oh, by the way, we have a trade surplus with the UK. So this isn't one of the deals that actually contributes to anything that helps.
So other than that, it's huge, is what you're saying.
Other than that, it's a big deal. It's huge. It's giant.
Okay. All right.
The good news is you can buy your Bentley now, Jim, without that extra tariff,
But despite your taking the air out of Trump's balloon here, and ours, actually, it seems to me that if there was ever an issue, other than a one-and-done thing, like trashing John McCain or whatever else he's done, if there was ever a continuing issue that seems to be a nightmare for Trump that probably won't go away, it's this. Am I exaggerating the importance of the tariff issue?
Not at all. I think this is it could be the moment that his voters discover the emperor has no clothes, right? This feels like he's finally being exposed for his lack of planning, right? Because, there's two ways to look at this. Is there a plan? And, I think the longer we know, there's never a plan with Trump. If Escape from Alcatraz is on TV one night, lo and behold, we're going to suddenly get, ideas about revamping Alcatraz, maybe if he watches the first Star Wars, which is all about a trade embargo, maybe that will, realize, oh no, that starts a whole global war. But, he doesn't really have a plan here. And he's sort of, now he's trying to figure out, okay, he's trying to save face. And if he can announce that deals are finally coming, it keeps the markets at bay. But that is only going to work for so long, because eventually we're going to have empty cargo ships that arrive with nothing on them. And you're going to go to Target and you're going to be like, my ponies are not there. And all of these things that my kid wants for their birthday is not there. And that's coming in weeks, not months.
Well, what I'm wondering is he could do what he does with everything else, which is back down with China, get rid of the huge 145% or whatever it is now, and declare it as a victory. Turn it around like he does with everything else, and convince people that
but when there are no Christmas gifts or no. Well, when on the shelf and those that are there, the prices are increased. For once, the lie is exposed.
Because you think it's too late, even if he does turn around the China tariffs.
I think it's too late.
I think it's too late.
It does. But thankfully, how about the ruse that the U.S. and China are using? Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary. Oh, I was negotiating with the Swiss, and we just happened to be here at the same time as the Chinese. Like, both countries are so afraid to look like they're ready to capitulate that they can't get caught capitulating. I mean, this is what's sort of silly. I guess it shows you that even in international affairs, there's silly talking points.
So go ahead, Jim.
I want to move to another thing. We all agree that the tariffs matter to the American people. By the way, there was a great story people should read. It's one guy. Did you read the thing about the auto parts dealer, I think, from Michigan,
Very upset.
who was willing to give Trump a chance? He gets almost all of his stuff from China. Obviously, the reality's hitting, as Chuck said. Read those kind of stories. In any case, the thing that it seems to me gets absolutely no traction, and so we can probably move past it quickly. You used the word, I think, kleptocracy with us more than once. So his kids are cutting deals in the Middle East for billions of dollars, from which Trump himself will benefit. There's this crypto scam and these dinners. You get invited if you're one of the big crypto things with Trump, and I assume Melania, even though did you read the story in the New York Times? She doesn't even show up at the White House, apparently.
Would you? Sorry. I mean, right? Like, sometimes Melania is us, right? I mean,
yeah.
So does anybody?
I would love to know what goes on in her brain. I think really would.
We all would. That's what we all would.
Okay,
love to
let me
know
get
what
back
you're
to this.
thinking.
Does anybody care about the grotesque self-enrichment? Nobody cares about this, right?
And it's a really, I mean, you know me, I'm sort of a history nerd. The worst scandal in American political history is actually not Watergate. It's Teapot Dome.
Right.
And what Teapot Dome was essentially this. Just literally the selling of American land and access. It was straight up grift. With that administration. It was sort of the beginning of the end of that version of the Republican Party, right? After that, Democrats essentially became the dominant party for a generation, basically not just on bad economic policy with the tariffs, hint, hint, but also this massive kleptocracy moment where all of Taft's cabinet was basically in on this grift. And this is sort of Teapot Dome and Watergate. If you were to put the two together, this is what he's doing. And the only reason I think the public is shrugging, the best theory I've heard on this is that it's because he does it in plain sight. He doesn't hide it.
Yeah.
It's like there's no shame about it. If he were to hide it and there was some shame, it's like the Nixon phone calls. When you heard the tapes, you went, oh, my God. Turns out if Nixon had just said it right there from the podium, it might not have been a problem.
But isn't it a problem when he regulates industries which he profits from?
For whom? How is it a problem?
It should be an impeachable offense.
Yeah.
What, are you going to impeach him again? Where's that going? Right? Like, it's beyond. I mean, this is why I say the Republican Party is a kleptocracy right now. And the question is, how long does the country itself, how overly transactional is this going to get? But I mean, look, if you want a tariff exemption, pay the man. If you want access to public lands, pay the man. If you want, and then that's how this works. And this is why a whole bunch of corporate America thought, okay, we can handle Trump 2.0. The problem is that as all these law firms have learned, Trump doesn't come. The postman. What is it? What's that movie? The postman
only
always
rings twice.
Yeah. No, this guy always rings.
Yeah.
He's always ringing. He's always going to keep coming back for more and coming back for more and coming back for more. When you've never been a real businessman like Trump has, right? And you've been constantly in need of deals to keep the cash flow going, which is really how he's conducted his business life since the bankruptcies of the casinos, right? Mm-hmm. Back in the late 80s, early 90s. And now he still operates this way. All right, how do I get cash? I mean, he operates like a guy still concerned he may lose. He may file for bankruptcy. He may get bankrupt, even though he's not going to. I mean, my gosh, he actually has wealth now, thanks to the presidency.
So, as we say, we expect any minute the non-tariff deal to be happening. Later this morning, the Bidens will be on The View. If you had a rate on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy the average Democratic leader is that the Bidens are going to be on The View today, what number would you give it, Chuck Todd?
Yeah, I might use a negative integer on that one. Meanwhile, how happy is the Trump White House that Joe Biden's going on The View today?
I mean, what do you think? Is this? I mean, I guess it's an obvious thing. Is when you have a big ego, like every single. I'm not saying just anybody, and you go out.
Presidents. presidents in general, their egos are just ginormous.
And so, I mean, this is what it is. We're going to continue to see this. He gave a little interview with the BBC or whatever it was in London the other day, and he was right on the merits, by the way. But obviously, this is not exactly what the average rank-and-file Democrat wants to see.
No, I mean, he's a look backwards, and it gives, Trump desperately needs to, remember during the first term, he was always looking for ways to run against Hillary still. Mm-hmm. And in the second term, he's always looking for ways to run against Biden, right? He looks good in his mind in comparison to those two. So constantly, the longer you get the American public to view Trump as the alternative to Biden, the less angry you might be at Trump on any given moment. At least that's what I think Trump believes.
Didn't he say on your old show, was it on Meet the Press the other day, where he said literally like this, all the good news on the economy is Trump news and all the bad news without a smile is Biden news? Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, I mean, like, what do you do if you're the Onion? Like, you can't even make stuff up anymore because, like, Trump will outdo you, right? Every time you're like, Trump's probably going to say that the good parts of the economy are his and the bad parts, he'd be like, oh, no, he's not that blatant. Oh, yeah. Yes, he is.
Okay, we're talking to Chuck Todd, host of the Chuck Toddcast, a former moderator, Meet the Press, political analyst. We're going to keep talking to him after a quick pledge break. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
5 days a week. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Okay, this is one of our regular pledge breaks here, and you may have heard that we're worried about finances these days with the threats from the federal government from Donald Trump. So, if you want to support GBH and you have been hesitating, here's an opportunity. Give $10 a month, and you'll receive an annual online subscription to the New York Times, which is not bent over to Donald Trump, which is still standing strong. Point. You may differ with their headlines from time to time. Basically, I'd say they're doing a pretty good job. I'd also say my daughter works there. Full disclosure. So help us, help her. That would be great.
No, don't help her. I mean, she will be helped, but this is not about helping her. But
it is not about helping her, but I did want to say that.
Yeah, but you can help her mother.
That's right. You can help me. That's right. So you get an unlimited, anytime, anywhere access to New York Times content, breaking news, reviews, opinion blogs, videos, the daily Wordle, which a lot of people really love, the cooking stuff, the basic cooking stuff, which people really love as well. And you can get simultaneous logins across devices, phone, tablet, computer at the same time. $10 a month, or you can give $120 all at once. If you give $10 a month, you become a sustainer member, and that is good for our budgeteers. Deadline is 7 o'clock tonight. After that, it goes away for the rest of the drive. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And it's not just this threat looming over public broadcasting, TV and radio. It's also the disappearance of fact in high places. I mean, we have opinions on this show, but they're fact-based opinions. You can disagree with the opinions all you want, but we really go out of our way, and I know our colleagues do, too, to report the facts to you, and then you make your own decision. You may like what we have to say, you may not like what we have to say, but if ever that mattered, and when we read some of the feedback yesterday from listeners kind enough to donate, you get it. So if you do, give what you can. If you can do the $10 a month thing and you get the New York Times, which is a really valuable gift, I would argue, if you don't get it already. And by the way, if you already have it, give it to somebody. Give it to your kid who's in college or in high school, or to somebody, some young person who you want to make sure lives a fact-based life. It's a great deal, but if you can't afford that, give what you can to become part of our effort to make sure people are informed and entertained and all those sort of things. The number is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. It takes just a minute, and if you have time, an extra minute to write a comment, they mean a hell of a lot to us. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We continue our conversation with the Chuck Toddcast. Chuck Todd.
You know, Chuck, in one of your podcasts, you were going through the list of Democrats that may run for president who had a good season so far and who hadn't. One of the people you talked about was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that I think some people would immediately say, oh, no, she's too far left to me. But you said she's done well. What's your analysis?
Well, look, I mean, when you look at it just in terms of metrics, right, this isn't about measuring ideology. I have skepticism about her electability for the entire electorate, but this is about who's strategically put themselves in a better position in the first 100 days, and she has. It's clear she's now the heir apparent to Bernie Sanders. That is a real, that seems to be a real partnership there. In fact, I'm going to be interviewing Ro Khanna actually pretty soon. You'll have him next week. I think there was a time Ro Khanna thought of himself as the potential heir apparent to Sanders. That's not the case anymore, right? And so she's, that, and look, the crowds are the crowds, right? You can't sit there. You can come up. Yes, Sanders can get, the Sanders organization's really good at crowd building and all of those things. But I think when you look at who's had, among the best first 100 days in the opposition, she probably has, and making it out to Idaho. How many presidential candidates have been doing that?
Yeah.
Right? So you gotta give her some credit. And look, I've marveled. There were two ways to go when you win as an insurgent politician, right? You stay an outsider and you stay a bomb thrower, or you play a little bit of the inside game. And she's dabbled on both sides of that spectrum, and I think she's done better than most in that position. But look, I still have some skepticism if she can unite the party. And I believe that Democrats care about perceived electability more than Republicans do.
Yeah.
It's just always been the case. And she's going to have to find a way to make a case on electability.
Well, here's one of the things,
and that's going to be a challenge for her. And the other big challenge she's going to have is winning over African American voters, who are they're less progressive than the perception is out there. They're the moderating force inside the Democratic Party.
But here's the thing I wonder, we're going to talk to listeners about this in a few minutes too, whether because income inequality and the fact that nobody can afford anything anymore, and the fact that so many Democratic presidential candidates, including Hillary Clinton, missed this whole thing, the hollowed out factory stuff. Her whole message is, you can get rid of the debate about the pronouns, maybe, and go more toward the economy, which she's been, and Bernie Sanders obviously have been the chief people pushing this. We're all, half of America's broke. So is it maybe 2025 the time when that message resonates a little bit more than it did?
Well, I will tell you this. I think both AOC and Elizabeth Warren are better at the income inequality message than Bernie Sanders is. Right? Bernie Sanders is using the same rhetoric that was used in the 1980s on this. Yeah. And he still hasn't really modernized his rhetoric. Both AOC and Elizabeth Warren have. Elizabeth Warren was better at this. I thought she was better at messaging than Bernie Sanders was. Now, he had a bit more charisma. He had a bigger base. But I thought she did a better job articulating. And in fact, Joe Biden took a lot more of her policy proposals than Bernie Sanders was.
Yeah.
What you're hinting at here is what I also think is going to be true, which is AOC may be the message maker here, even if she's not the eventual messenger, right? She's the one putting together the more modern income inequality message that connects the working class of the Bronx with the working class of Dayton, Ohio, with the working class of San Antonio, Texas, right? So I think that, that's where I think she is more gifted than Sanders is for sure. And, that I suspect has a lot of influence on the eventual Democratic nominee's rhetoric. Maybe it ends up being her. But like I said, I think fair or unfair, she's probably been painted too liberal to win the electability argument. But look, she's a talented. A phrase I use a lot is political athlete.
Yeah, I love that.
And there are people. The best political athletes are the ones that can overcome. Jalen Brunson is a guy who shouldn't be tall enough to be a success. Sorry to bring up that. I just realized I'm probably.
He plays for the New York Knicks for those few who were not in pain last night.
Yeah, thank you.
But like, look at him. here's a guy that you would say, oh my gosh, he's barely 6'1". I think he's 6'2" with his sneakers on. And you say, but the guy is such a fabulous athlete. He overcomes the obstacles in theory. And I think she's that kind of talented political athlete. And it's just like in his own way, Donald Trump was, right? He had to be a talented political athlete to overcome all of his liabilities. And so that's why, we should be careful just putting people in boxes and assuming they can't charismatically get out of them.
Well, he's not only figuratively a great athlete. When we've seen him in his polo shirt on the golf course, he's obviously a great physical specimen.
His golf shot,
too.
That's why you never see
I notice
pictures.
all the AI shots always have him buff. When do you think he's ever lifted a weight? One weight.
You're talking about me? You're talking about Trump. Hey, can I get back to something?
Hold on.
No. I want to get back.
Why so few pictures of Donald Trump's golf swing? Because it's really bad. He may hit the ball a long way, may do well, but his golf swing.
Not every politician, if they had a horrible golf swing, would do the exact same thing? It's not a Trumpian thing.
Well, I just
Can I go back to something?
Shows everything. He would show that if it
Can
were
we go
good.
back to what you said a minute ago, that black voters are the moderating force in the Democratic Party? Do you mean black men or do you mean black
I think
voters? Black women, too?
Black middle class. I mean, I think, think about the messaging on law enforcement. It's not, I think people conflate the leadership sometimes of some of these movements like Black Lives Matter and assume that when I say they're a moderating force, they really are on particularly on cultural issues and on, part of that is a religious thing. Black voters are more likely to go to church every week. They're pretty much the only Democratic constituency. And the more you go to a religious service, the more culturally conservative you are. So that's what I mean when I say that they're the moderating force. It's both, it's older black women and black men in general. But I think that, I think sometimes Stacey Abrams isn't speaking for all, she's a bit more progressive, I think, than the average African-American woman.
Who's the baseball player pictured over your head? I can't make it
Roy
up.
Campanella.
Oh, it is Roy, a catcher, obviously.
Yeah, it was my father's
Brooklyn.
favorite. Yeah, it was my father's favorite player. He met him when he was a kid. That's what made him a Dodger fan.
Oh.
So that's my little homage.
That's pretty great.
It's my homage, and I love that picture of Campy.
It's a great picture. Hey, speaking of your sadism, which we were when you brought up Brunson a couple of seconds ago, is this the worst two-game collapse in the history of pro basketball?
My goodness, I'm trying to figure out another. Who I'm feeling sorry for this morning is poor old Jason Tatum, right?
That block at the end of the game was humiliating.
Well, it was. And the fact that he couldn't get the shot off and all that. But here's the thing. It always feels as if he's an underappreciated star in Boston. And then when he has, frankly, he looks scared at the end of the first game too. I just assume Boston sports talk must be just eviscerating him.
I don't know if I don't know if it's in the world places you've lived in your life. The time that sports radio, I shouldn't be promoting sports radio, is at its best is when the teams are at their worst. I mean,
it's so true.
It is so
Philly
good.
and Boston and New York, the three in particular, are always so good.
Brutal.
When the teams sort of fall on their face.
By the way, do you think it's a coincidence? Those are the three places I've lived in my life, by the way.
Well,
Philadelphia, New York. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
There it is. No, the only downside to the Knicks rise is I like the Knicks fans that have been long suffering. I hate the bandwagon Knicks fans.
Yeah.
And we can all see them coming. All of a sudden you're like, oh, look at the celebrities now on the side. Where the hell were you when the team was once again just booing James Dolan?
Old man Chuck Todd speaking right now. Hey, Chuck, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Be
Todd.
well.
You got it.
Thank you very much,
Go
Chuck.
Celtics. Beat back the Knicks. Damn it.
We hope
Sure,
so.
yeah.
We've been speaking with political analyst Chuck Todd, host of the Chuck Toddcast. He's a political analyst and former moderator of NBC's Meet the Press, and we very much appreciate his insights. Coming up after this pledge break, we are opening the phone and text lines to talk about something we mentioned with Chuck. Is the mainstream Democratic Party having a mea culpa moment around Bernie Sanders and even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's standing more firmly to the left, help distinguish Democrats from the new MAGA establishment? Call or text next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference. Please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org. or by calling 888-897-9424.
So here's the deal. What do you call it? Enticement? What's the word used? It's horrible.
Gift.
Oh, you used to call it enticement.
I did?
I think, well, maybe it was
Present.
you. Maybe it was somebody else. In any case, the thing today is for $10 a month to $120 all at once, you receive an annual online subscription to the New York Times. And let me quote myself from a few minutes ago. If you already have one, and I bet a lot of you do, then buy it and give it to somebody who doesn't have one.
That's a good idea, Jim.
Thank you very much. It's a really wonderful thing, and particularly if you're concerned about a world in which people make decisions based upon made-up non-fact. This is you got to stop with the thing there. In any case, that's the thing. But whatever you can do, this is a perfect time, whether it's $10 a month, $120 all at once, less, more, whatever you can afford. Now is a wonderful time to show your support for what we do here. One, because the need is huge, and two, because the potential need could be huger. We have no idea what's going to happen with the feds. You all know about the threats from Trump to public broadcasting. We don't know if they're going to become real. Whether they do or not, there's a need, and we hope you help do it. And what your money pays for is not only us, our wonderful team, without whom we couldn't do any of this, and our wonderful colleagues who do fabulous fact-based work. So now's the time. 888-897-9424. Sorry for rambling. gbhnews.org.
Somebody wants to know when we're going to have a dickie for our prize during the pledge.
Well, we can't disclose that particular date, but we're sure it's coming.
A dickie's coming?
A GBH dickie.
With your face on it?
Or my whatever on it, if you know what I mean.
Dickie.
Okay, continue.
Okay. We have these pledge drives a few times a year because we do not have commercials. Most of our money comes from small donors like you people that are listening right now, unless you're like a real high roller or something. Most of it comes from people that are giving pledge $10 or $15 a month, which is very generous and means a lot to us. Of course, if you have more, we'll always take that too. But in any case, as Jim said, we're giving the New York Times this time for your enticement. It's really easy. You just way to give. You just pick an amount to charge each month to your credit card, and you just call the number I'm going to give you in a second. It takes only a few seconds because operators, Jim, are standing by.
They are?
I love to say that.
I
yes,
love that.
They are standing by, because how else would you be able to call and make a
gift?
gift?
If they weren't standing by. They're probably
Exactly.
sitting by, I would
Well,
argue.
they could be
but
sitting
maybe,
by.
yeah.
888. It doesn't work that way. You don't supposed to see operators sitting by, standing by.
Okay,
888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, the governor is joining us from noon to 1 for Ask the Governor. The mayor is joining us. Well, the attorney general is joining us on May 21st. The mayor on May 23rd. And on Monday's show, this is really important to us. We're going to talk with Olga Cherevko. She's with the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs on the ground in Gaza City. She'll be talking to us. That really matters to us, and we hope to you. That's Monday. Till the top of the hour, we're extending a conversation we just sort of had with Chuck Todd. I'd like you to weigh in by call or text at 877-301-8970. What should the future of the Democratic Party in this country look like? What used to be seen as radical policy, for example, government-subsidized childcare, healthcare for all, including dental for older people, more affordable housing, sort of make up the core of the Sanders AOC economic policy. Is that what it should look like in 2025, in 2026? It is a perfect fit for the times, or is it risk alienating centrist voters? Our number is 877-301-8970. You make a pretty eloquent case, Marjorie, that not only is this not radical policy, but it's mainstream policy, particularly when people's basic rights are being taken away and the economy is tanking.
Well, I think it's only, in the last 3 years that affordable housing has become an issue that people are talking about across the country. I mean, I think, as we've said so many times, I think when we were up in New Hampshire in 2016, a lot of voters in New Hampshire, fairly conservative voters, were debating between Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Why? Because of their populist economic ideas. I think by now people know that populism and economics is not what Donald Trump is after, but Bernie Sanders has certainly been after. This AOC that Chuck Todd just talked about, they've been going across the country in this they do rallies together. Bernie, the 83-year-old, and AOC, I think she's 35. She's a young woman anyway, a talented political athlete, as I say. But what they're talking about is the big problem, I think, for most people in America. Everything is too expensive. You can't afford childcare. You can't afford a house. You can't afford an apartment. You can't afford to go to college. Everything has become so expensive. So to talk about that a little bit more.
Every one of the things on that list means bigger government, and people don't. And people, even I agree with your analysis in the abstract, but people are not only suspicious of government because of what Trump's done in 100 and some days. I would argue they're more suspicious of government than they were even before.
Well, I think when people get the checks in the mail during the pandemic, they weren't very suspicious of those checks.
That's a very good point.
And we don't have to necessarily give people checks, but who doesn't want, that has young children, subsidized childcare? Now, Bernie Sanders has talked about universal preschool. 4-year-olds get to go to school for free. I think there should be it should be subsidized dramatically. Elizabeth Warren ran on a 7% of your income limit
Max, right?
On childcare, which I think is a great idea. The affordable housing thing, we've talked endlessly about affordable housing in Massachusetts, but not for that long, only for a few years now, and we are really slow to build it. That's the other thing. I think Democrats are really slow to do the stuff they say that they're going to do. It takes forever for them to do stuff. But that, I think, doesn't seem, if you think about those things, climate change, people thought that was a radical idea. I think fewer and fewer people think it's a radical idea because they're seeing its impacts now. So those kinds of things. Subsidize childcare, help with college, help with rent, something. You can afford rent, you can afford a house, all those economic issues. Do you think of Bernie Sanders as a radical nut anymore, or even AOC that a lot of people don't like because they think she's from the Bronx or she was a waitress?
By the way,
or
he
whatever.
wasn't seen as a radical nut, to use your words. Like, he was leading in the race until South Carolina, when Biden all of a sudden pulled things out. Let me say two things before we get to the calls. One, I don't think it matters what the Democrats stand for. I know that is going to make that unpopular notion for a lot of Democrats. What matters is they're not Donald Trump if he continues to destroy the economy. And number two, you know what matters almost as much as message, which I know also will upset people, is messenger. If you don't have an appealing person delivering, you know what, that old tired line, if Ronald Reagan had been a liberal rather than a conservative, he still would have been elected president, but as a liberal in 1980, because he was such an appealing character to the voters. I sort of feel the same way now. I'm not saying that people don't care about ideology and don't care about policy, but we have learned. Remember that great David Axelrod column in the New York Times we've quoted a lot of times after Trump won the first time, saying, I should have seen this coming? Because people, when they're unhappy for whatever reason with what is, they want almost the opposite, meaning Obama's moving from Obama to Trump. And I think Trump, the unhappiness with Trump dwarfs the unhappiness with Barack Obama. And I think it's going to get a lot worse for Trump. That's one. And two, you need the right voice. And so I agree with you. It's not out of the mainstream policy anymore, but I'm not sure how much it matters. What do you guys think? 877-301-8970. Kim and Norton, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Hey there.
Hi there. I love being first, and I've called a lot of times. I'm a long-time supporter.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm a big follower of AOC, and one of the things that she talked a lot about right after the election was she was having conversations with her voters, and she has the ones in particular that voted for her and Donald Trump. And that is why she is appealing. She has integrity, she's real, and people believe her. They believe she's fighting for them. And I believe her too.
Nicely put, Kim.
You know, people say they don't like her. I don't get it, because when you see her, like when
Who
you
says
see
they don't like her?
A lot of people think she's, a
Is
lefty
a person,
lunatic.
Or you mean because of her policies?
I think both. I think both. They see her as too young or whatever. I don't know why they don't like her. But when you actually see her, Kim, at one of these rallies, or you see her questioning somebody in Congress, she does her homework. She's not giving speeches. She asks great questions. She's really smart. And I think that's, obviously she's a good-looking young woman, and I hate to say it, but almost everybody's going to be good-looking.
That about every politician.
Well, because politicians almost have to be reasonably good-looking now because we're in a visual age.
Trump's a really attractive guy. It's true.
Well,
really attractive.
I mean, he's 78. I would think some people would say Donald Trump is not a bad
I would not know
man.
one person who would say that, but that's okay.
Well, I guess Melania thought he was okay.
Well, I guess not, actually. Kim, thank you for your call.
Did
nice
for a
try.
while.
I
for
would
a
say
while.
that probably
You
isn't
would
true
think,
either.
Okay, all right.
Okay, 877-301-8970. Nick in Hartford, Connecticut. Welcome to the show, Nick. Hi.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Fine,
We're good.
thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing that is, I don't know what I don't know what end of the spectrum I am with millennials. I'm 35, so I don't know where that puts me.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure. I'm not sure.
But go ahead.
Younger-ish person. I think that all the stuff that I've been seeing lately with like people like Alyssa Slotkin saying that, we need to focus on pocketbook issues and get away from, whatever they define as woke. I don't think that people are responding to what people would deem as woke, supporting transgender people in different marginalized groups. The thing that really, at least for me and the people around me, that makes us angry is the kind of overly performative version of it. When you had Democratic congressional leadership kneeling and wearing outfits to signal their support for people without actually putting legislation through to just help people in a really tangible way. That's the stuff that really makes us mad and makes them look like they really don't give a damn. And
Nick,
I think
I'm sorry.
They really need to step up and do it.
I missed part of what you were saying, the performative part. What were people doing that was just performative? I missed that.
During the Black Lives Matter period, people were kneeling and stuff and wearing specific scarves. I don't think that a lot of black voters are not progressive, but they have the same problems as everybody else. So when they're only catered to in this very performative way, they're not actually being helped on the ground, then I can see why they would lose interest.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of talk during the election, too, about just don't show up at my black church 2 days before the election. I think that's enough. Our staff put up a picture.
Before you go away, I
Pelosi.
remember cringing that day. That was the kente cloth, is what it was called, right?
Yeah, everybody's kneeling with the kente cloth on. Yeah,
that is actually
that was
a wonderful
sort of obnoxious
point, Nick. I also think, and I'm for the third time, I'll aggravate people because people we all like to believe all we care about is policy. Beyond the messenger being the right messenger and opposing Trump, I think the passion quotient matters a lot. Maybe that melds with what you said, Nick, about don't be performative, actually do something. When there's a high energy and you feel that it's real, it's authentic kind of response to Trumpism, I find that incredibly compelling, even if all the details are not what they should be. Nick, that was a fine call. Thank you for making it. We really appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is our number.
Okay, we got to take a quick break for pledge. We're going to be right back after that to talk about how you feel about these more supposedly so progressive, nobody likes them policies, which really, when you think about it, have become, at least according to polls, pretty mainstream. 877-301-8970 is the number. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Boston Public Radio. Live local conversations every day, brought to you by listener support. Now it's your turn to keep the conversation going with an ongoing contribution in any amount. Please sign up as a sustaining member during our spring membership drive. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Yeah, I should emphasize again how easy and quick it is to make a contribution. You just call that number, 888-897-9424. As I said before, Jim, the operators are standing by to get your information. It's very fast. Or you can go to gbhnews.org and give securely that way. But if you haven't given before, or you've given before and you'd like to give a little bit more because we got the federal government on our backs here, this is a great time to contribute. We're on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have great programming all a week long, and it costs some money to do all this, not to mention what goes on the TV side, which is absolutely amazing. We have the frontline people in here all the time. We won an Academy Award last year for their 20 Days in Mariupol, which of course was about the beginning of the war, the attack on Ukraine by Russia. So anyway, we have this deal right now for $10 a month. You can get an annual online subscription to the New York Times. You can get it right. You get it right on your phone. You get the breaking news, excuse me, on your phone, reviews. You get the cooking stuff. You get the daily Wordle, which is really fun. Do you do Wordle?
I don't want to say what I'm going to say.
Okay, you don't do Wordle.
It's too easy. I'm sorry.
Excuse
I know that was something I'll regret forever.
Too easy for Jim. Too easy for Jim. Okay. Maybe you should do the double crossword on Sunday.
No, I can't do the spelling. I can't do the others. But that Wordle is too easy.
Okay.
It's too easy.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll let Jim talk now. Who thinks that Wordle is too easy? The number is 888-897-9424.
Yes, me.
gbhnews.org. Okay, Wordle.
Okay.
Wordle dish.
Wordle dish. Thank you. That's what a lot of my friends call me, Wordle dish, by the way. It's fun. I can't believe I've never told you that. And obviously you knew that. Was amazing. What do I want to say? What I want to say here is think about the guests. I was just thinking, we pre-taped the Chuck Todd thing, as we said before. We're saying, so what do you think of the UK deal with the United States, which, as Chuck said to us, which we didn't know, is not a deal at all.
Wasn't going to be a deal.
No, there is no deal.
There's no deal.
The details are to come. So you got the regular guests here.
Another scam.
I have to say, we really look forward to talking to every one of these people. Or, by the way, they wouldn't be guests on the show. The irregular guests are great. Next week, tomorrow, we have the governor for an hour where you can call and ask a question or do it face-to-face if you come to our wonderful studio at the library. Where else do you get that? That costs something, even if we weren't at risk of losing federal money, that costs something, and we need support. And now's your opportunity to show that you support the work we and our colleagues do. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. Jim Browdy, and I'm not on the air, but it doesn't really matter because I never have anything good to say. I am now.
Yep.
I am Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We're back, and we're talking about whether or not, in response to Trumpism, policies that used to be seen as sort of very left-leaning, not appealing to the center of America, things like, as Marjorie said, the subsidized child care, universal health care, particularly things like Bernie Sanders supported for Medicare, dental coverage for older people in this country. That's a radical notion, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to be toothless once you hit 65.
And by the way, Zoe wrote us a note, which I think is a very good point. These are not progressive policies in Europe, just for the record. Most European progressives think Bernie is a centrist, and she goes on and on and on like that. And in this country, we've allowed the media and right-wing media in particular, but even centrist media, mainstream media, to portray these what should be mainstream ideas as somehow radical.
Yeah.
What they do is address basic unmet needs of the American people.
It's radical thinking it's a good idea to ship people off to deport people and send them to Libya. I would say that's a pretty radical idea. But listen to a couple of these texts. It's an indictment of our country that the idea of a nation doing things for its people is too radical. I supported Bernie in 60 and 20, and it's very vindicating to see more people realize this. On the other hand, we have someone who says, of course, people are suspicious of government. Billions of dollars for EV chargers and 7 of them installed. It's something like that. It's very few. How about the kiosk at Harvard Square still being built? We'll have 3 popes by the time this is done. And, that is a great point. That's one of my big points that's coming out of this election.
We can't do anything.
It takes us forever to do stuff, and I think it's very frustrating to people. Joe Biden reduced prices on 10 drugs, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have to wait till 2026 for those prices
because
to go down?
Congress would never have passed it if it happened right away because the Republicans were worried that the Democrat would win the presidency.
Well,
that's the nature of political compromise.
Yeah. And he was big on the EV chargers, and the texter is right. I mean, I don't know why it took us so damn long to put up the chargers, and that's why a lot of people don't want to buy electric cars.
Jim in
Yarmouthport. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Jim.
Oh, hi, Jim and Marjorie. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Thank you.
Jim, I remember I really liked watching you on TV in the old days. You remember that, right?
It wasn't that long ago, but thank you. It wasn't the old days. It was 2+ years ago. But I enjoyed doing it. Thanks for mentioning it. I appreciate it.
Maybe he was talking about you and me on TV. That was a long time ago.
No, that was not.
Nobody ever saw our
good,
show,
actually.
I don't think. They didn't see it.
By the way, there are literally 3 people in America who saw that show that we did together. It was really good. But it was... Okay, Jim, continue. Go ahead.
I just want to say that I think you guys are definitely have the right mix of things that the government should be doing for people, helping people, Medicare, Medicaid, child care, Social Security. And I think the public is going to come around to that, those who aren't already, as they live through the next few years. The other thing that I just want to say is I'm not sure AOC is the right candidate. I think, I'd be happy to vote for her. I voted for Kamala. I voted for Hillary. But I think that...
By the way, let me be clear. I don't think I don't mean to preempt you, Jim. I don't think anybody's. You weren't talking about her being the candidate. We're talking about the ideas that are being advanced by Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah. Bernie Sanders is not going to be the candidate either. He's going to be like 100 by the time the next election comes around. Go ahead.
I'll tell you who my guy is.
Who is it?
I'd like to see Cory Booker run.
Yeah.
He's very smart. He's got great experience. He's very articulate. And I think he's looking to run. I mean, I give him a little money, and one day I got like 4 or 5 emails from him.
Well, you also got 25 hours standing up without peeing on the Senate floor, which is pretty impressive. Jim, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
What do you think of Cory Booker?
I think he's good.
I think he's inauthentic.
Oh, I don't think so at all.
He doesn't.
What based on what?
Just listen to him talk.
Yeah.
He's never done it for me. He didn't do it for me when he ran for president. But then neither did Kamala Harris. So there you go.
No,
a lot of people are mentioning. A lot of people are mentioning
who?
Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
So that's the question: is America ready for a gay guy?
Well, I said if you, I said that we would never have a black president in our lifetime on our prior show, and I was wrong about that. And I think I tend to think there's an issue with the American people accepting a gay guy, even though they shouldn't. And he is a incredibly smart, incredibly skillful competition.
You know, it's great
don't know.
when you hear him, and he goes on Fox a lot too. When you
that's
hear
one
him,
of his best qualities.
There are certain people that are really smart. Margaret Marshall is one of them. She was the former Chief Justice for the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court. That can explain really complicated
complex things in simple ways.
Yes, in simple ways. She can do that brilliantly.
You know what they all have in common, by the way, in all seriousness? None of them do Wordle. So let me just... Can I get...
I'm glad it's so easy for you. I think it took me about 20 minutes 2 days ago to figure out what the damn word was. I thought, do I cheat? Do I not cheat? Do I look up
You cheat sometimes?
Sometimes if I can't get it, I look up what the central thing is down the middle, so I figure it out. Yeah, sometimes I get really frustrated by Wordle. I'm really, what I'm really good at?
No, I really don't care.
The mini crossword.
You are?
Yeah. They say you should be able to do that in a minute and a half. Sometimes that takes me about 20 minutes,
Now
too.
we have 3 people still listening to the show.
Jim and Arlington. Oh, we already talked to Jim and Arlington.
No, we didn't.
Oh, we didn't? Oh, hi, Jim.
Another Jim. Thank you. It's going well today, I think. Hi, Jim.
Hi, guys. Yeah, it's going great. And
Thanks.
love the show. I just want to introduce the idea of, in addition to redistribution, and the government programs you're talking about all basically fall under the rubric of redistribution of wealth.
Yep.
And I'm for all of them. But, the right has fairly successfully managed to demonize redistribution as socialism, which a lot of Americans reflexively reject. But there's also the idea of pre-distribution. This is something I read from Robert Reich, I believe, and that is before taxes, wealth is being distributed unfairly. As far as consumers, we're being ripped off by big pharma and wireless companies and everybody else. And as workers, wages have stagnated, and benefits have disappeared, and pensions have disappeared. So legislation could be passed that would change the rules, make that more fair, without redistributing money via taxes, which is very tough to accomplish.
It's a fine point.
Well, don't forget, we did it for a long time. We did it right up until the time Ronald Reagan became the president. There was a lot, the taxation on the wealthy was much higher than it is.
45 years ago.
Well, it is, yeah. And it's taken people a long time to realize how they got screwed in tax-wise by
Jim, thanks for the
Ronald
call.
Reagan, who
Appreciate
said
it.
government is a disaster. And government is sometimes a disaster, but not always a disaster.
You know what I'm going to do while you're reading this outro,
do
which will
Wordle?
probably take 5 seconds, I'll do Wordle.
Okay. We are moving on. We're going to talk with Andrea Cabral right after the noontime news. We're going to talk to her about, an eviction change in Massachusetts and a bunch of other news. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
It is Boston Public Radio on GBH, and listener support is the most important and largest source of funding for GBH. Please take just a few minutes and give right now. When you do, you'll be one of the many people who help to keep Boston Public Radio on the air. GBHnews.org or call 888-897-9424. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Zach Finn.
And to stay on track today, we need 10 more contribution. We are looking for 10 more people to give in the next 6 minutes. Now, GBH, NPR, they play a vital role in delivering trustworthy news that you can rely on. And by giving right now, you help ensure that quality journalism prevails over misinformation. How important is that? Please make that contribution right now. We're looking for 10 more in the next 6 minutes. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Information with a dose of humor. It's why you listen to Boston Public Radio. Whether Jim and Marjorie keep you company on your lunch break or while you're running errands, they talk about the issues that matter to you. So please support local conversations like this by giving right now. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
And today only, we're going to thank you with an annual online subscription to the New York Times with your contribution of $10 a month to GBH. Now, the facts are important to you, and that's why you listen to GBH, right? And the New York Times, a perfect companion to your listening. Give $10 a month, or you can give $120 all at once if you prefer, and go ahead and get the Times right now. The deadline is coming up 7 p.m. tonight. gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
And the majority of GBH's operating budget comes from our listeners and from the community. Your contribution, added with others, is how we keep this independent source for journalism on the air and available in Boston. And your contribution has never been more important than it is right now. So please make that contribution by calling 888-897-9424 or making that gift online at gbhnews.org.
And the monthly sustaining membership is the preferred way to support GBH. It's so quick and it's so easy to set up. You simply pick a recurring charge from your bank account or your credit card. Many folks start by giving maybe $10 per month. So please take those few minutes, sign up right now. 888-897-9424. Go online, gbhnews.org.
Hey, thank you so much to Richard in Greenville, Rhode Island, and also Albert in Rochester, New Hampshire, making a contribution. And we just heard from Jane in Newbury, coming together to help us reach our goal. We've got about 4 more minutes in this hour, and we're looking for now just 7 more people to give. Just 7 more fans of Boston Public Radio coming together to help us stay on track with this goal. And that keeps us on track for the overall goal in this spring membership drive. Call 888-897-9424. Make your contribution right now. Help us reach this goal. You can also give online at gbhnews.org.
And hey, the drive to eliminate federal funding for public media is just one of multiple efforts to eliminate our overall service to Boston and beyond. Now, today we're asking you to stand with GBH by becoming a sustaining member, by increasing your monthly gift, or by making an additional contribution to the station. That is the best way to keep fact-based, objective programming on the air and free to all. Please give right now, gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And when you make that gift of support, today only we can say thank you with an annual online subscription to the New York Times with your contribution, again, of just $10 per month to GBH. The facts are important to you. It's why you listen to GBH. And the New York Times is a perfect companion to your listening. So take advantage of this very limited time offer. It goes away this evening at 7 o'clock, but you're listening right now. Make that contribution right now. Ask for the online subscription to the New York Times as our thanks for your contribution. 888-897-9424 888-897-9424 or make your gift online at gbhnews.org.
Thousands of people support GBH, and in return, you tell us that you hear the news that matters. Your contribution right now ensures that everyone in our community has access to diverse voices and points of view. Please make that first ever contribution now to ensure that you have the information you need and the news that matters. Sign up as a new sustaining member at $5 or $10 a month. The gift, along with others, adds up to a public radio station that responds to you. 888-897-9424 or go online, gbhnews.org.
Okay, we are so close to reaching our goal thanks to a friend in Stoughton and Irene in League City, Texas. Thank you so much for making your contribution. We're down to just 4 more people to hear from in the next few minutes to wrap up this goal. You can help us reach that goal. Just 4 more people to hear from in the next few minutes here by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
And be one of those 4. And we're going to thank you with an annual online subscription to the New York Times. It's a contribution of $10 a month to GBH. The facts are so very important. It's why you listen to GBH. And New York Times truly is the companion you're looking for. $10 a month or $120 all at once. Deadline is coming up. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And we are so close to hitting that goal. Just 2 more people now to hear from in the next few minutes to wrap up this goal. Help us reach that goal by calling 888-897-9424. Again, that number is 888-897-9424 or make your gift online at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you and Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And Native Plant Trust, celebrating 10 years of Trillium Week during peak spring bloom next week at Garden in the Woods. Special events and more at nativeplanttrust.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio. A new law in Massachusetts lets you seal your eviction records in almost all cases. We'll talk with former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety Andrea Cabral about this and how Trump's own words sunk his case against that Perkins Cole law firm.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then legendary environmentalist Bill McKibben joins us for an update on his Sunday movement, playing defense against Trump for his environmental cuts, but going on the offense as well. We'll hear more about it from Bill himself. It's all next on the second hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's touting a breakthrough on trade with the UK. He says the final details of an agreement will be drafted in the coming weeks. Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer joined Trump by speakerphone as Trump announced the deal would give U.S. companies better market access for beef, ethanol, machinery, industrial products, among others. Meanwhile, Trump predicts a tariffs deal is coming between the U.S. and China, the world's 2 biggest economies.
Right now, you can't get any higher. It's at 145, so we know it's coming down. I think we're going to have a very good relationship. You know, I always got along very well with President Xi.
So far, China's been resisting Trump's pressure. The U.S. and China are preparing for high-level talks in Switzerland this weekend. There have been fresh attacks today between nuclear-armed rivals Pakistan and India. Pakistan's army spokesman says his country shot down a dozen Indian military drones that had killed a civilian and injured 4 Pakistani soldiers. NPR's Omkar Karndeka reports this comes after India's most significant missile attacks on Pakistan in more than 50 years.
Spokesperson Ahmad Sharif says the drones were hovering over major cities, including Rawalpindi, the location of the Pakistani army headquarters.
This is a serious
provocation.
The latest accusations come after India struck multiple targets across Pakistan on Tuesday in what it says is retaliation for a militant attack in late April, where gunmen killed 26 people. Pakistan denies any connection to that attack and says it will defend itself. Omkar Khandekar, NPR News, Mumbai.
At the Vatican, a 2/3 majority vote remains elusive. No one candidate has yet secured enough backing from cardinals to succeed the late Pope Francis. Evident twice this morning when the chimney of the Sistine Chapel billowed more black smoke. And so voting continues. NPR's Sarah Ventry is in St. Peter's Square.
We are now in the afternoon of the second day of the conclave, where 133 cardinal electors will decide who among them is the next pope. In the meantime, there are thousands of people milling around St. Peter's Square, all anxiously awaiting smoke. And there is just kind of a mood of excitement and a little bit of electricity in the crowd. Whether people are religious or not, whether they're Catholic or not, everyone I've spoken to is excited to be here for this historical moment.
That's NPR's Sarah Ventry reporting. Cardinals, 133 of them are sequestered from the outside world. They're trying to find a candidate who can lead the 2,000-year-old church in an era when many, especially young people, are questioning the Vatican's credibility. U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 551 points, or 1.3%. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts is one of 17 states and the District of Columbia that have filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration challenging President Trump's executive order on wind energy. On his first day in office, Trump put the brakes on all permitting and approval for wind farms, both offshore and on. States led by Democrats are spearheading the lawsuit, but Cape Cod energy consultant Chris Powicki says some Republican-led states could quietly hope that the blue states prevail.
I suspect, based on support for the wind industry in some of the plain states, the so-called red states might be rooting for the blue states to win this one in those areas that do have a substantial wind resource, because the impacts of the executive order have been huge on not just the offshore wind industry, but the wind industry writ large.
Powicki is the local Sierra Club chair for the Cape and Islands. More than 6 in 10 Americans surveyed in a recent poll say they believe that businesses should display the portion of the price of products for sale that are costs added by tariffs. Amazon had reportedly said in April that they would include the cost added to customers' purchases by President Trump's tariffs. And White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt responded by calling the move a hostile and political act by Amazon. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren criticized Amazon founder Jeff Bezos for what she said was reversing course on the plan after speaking with Trump. Mass Live reports that the Economist YouGov poll asked 1,850 respondents, should businesses display how much a purchase price goes toward paying tariffs. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are live from Brighton and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be joined by Governor Maura Healey tomorrow from noon to 1 at the Boston Public Library, plus live music Friday from Boston calling artist Latrell James and festival organizer Mike Snow. 2 more programming notes. Attorney General Andrea Cabral will be with us May 21st, and Mayor Michelle Wu will be with us May 23rd. And somewhere in there, Josh Kraft, I think it's May 13th. Josh Kraft, who is running against Mayor Wu, will be joining us then. Hi, Jim.
You love a good programming note. Probably better than anybody knows.
It makes me feel organized, efficient, makes me feel like I'm on top of my game.
Even if you get the dates wrong.
That's right.
Because just the fact of saying
That's why you're here, to correct the dates.
Here with us via Zoom is former Suffolk County Sheriff, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety. That would be Andrea Cabral. Hi, Andrea. Nice to see you.
Hello to both of you. How are you?
Well, excellent, Andrea Cabral. So, we talk endlessly about the inaffordability of housing around here, whether you're
Can I just say one thing before you go? You
What?
mentioned this before. We're watching as we're talking to you. They have the chimney where either the white or the black
for the Vatican.
smoke is going to come out on a close-up on CNN.
Yeah.
But the beautiful part of it, there are two seagulls.
Hanging out.
There's like a little sparrow sitting there. And it's like this momentous thing that the world is watching.
Yeah.
And these birds are just hanging out on there, whatever.
They're excited, They're lapsed Catholics. They
Okay,
haven't
I'm
been
sorry
to
interrupt.
church
Go
in a
ahead.
while, but they're thinking this could be the time
could change it
that
all.
this could change it all for them.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
They sit in the
Sorry,
pigeon
sorry.
seats or
Okay,
the
go ahead.
seagull seats.
Go ahead.
Okay, anyway, Andrea Cabral, we talk a lot about the cost of housing around here. So there's this new law having to do with evictions in Massachusetts. Tell us about it and what you think.
Well, I think it's a good thing. Governor Healy signed it into law. It was part of the Affordable Housing Act. If you probably remember, we talked about it a lot on the show. It was one of the big, huge bills that was pending before the legislature, and there was a lot of anxiety around the timeliness of signing it into law, or whether or not the legislature was going to actually get it through. Ultimately, it did, and this was part of it. And essentially, what this does is it's under certain circumstances, and there's sort of tiered circumstances. There are circumstances under which a tenant who faces an eviction proceeding, and there are different kinds of eviction proceedings, will be able to
Can I interrupt
seal
you to
that-
say there's white smoke coming out
Oh, my God,
of
they
the...
picked a pope.
So obviously
That was fast.
during the show, we will hear the voice, we assume, of the new pope. I'm sorry, Andrea. Just literally this second, white smoke. Take it away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the tenants, depending on the circumstances, will be allowed to seal their eviction proceedings. And the reason for that is because like I said, there are different kinds of eviction proceedings. There are no-fault eviction proceedings, which that's when a landlord tenant has to move simply because the landlord wants to sell the property. It's no fault of the tenants that they have to move. But just the simple fact of having an eviction proceeding against a tenant be available to another landlord is enough to discourage that landlord from renting to that tenant. So it works at a disadvantage for the tenant. Likewise, when a tenant wins, a tenant can win an eviction case on the merits, be right, and it'll still cause a landlord to not want to rent to them, possibly because they were good enough to prevail in the earlier proceeding, and the landlord doesn't want to find himself on the wrong end of an eviction proceeding with a successful tenant. So even when a tenant is lawfully evicted, there's still, after a certain number of years, after appeals are perfected and lost, after a certain number of years, I think it's around 7, you can still seal it. So this basically puts finality to a set of civil proceedings that, by and large, worked at a disadvantage for tenants trying to find affordable housing, and there are already plenty of barriers to that in Massachusetts.
And if people react to, Andrea got it exactly right. If you win, if you're a defendant, you're the tenant in an eviction proceeding, you win, the case is dismissed, it was a no fault, immediately the record is sealed. And the more extreme example, as Andrea said, if it turns out you're at fault, that is even sealed after 7 years. And for people to say, well, that's unfair to the landlord because isn't he or she, aren't they entitled to know you have a tenant that either defaulted on rent or, had wild parties in violation of lease? The language, this is one of the rare circumstances where it appears to me, at least the legislature got it right, is if you have during that 7-year period, the most extreme case where the tenant is at fault, if you have other proceedings against you, then you can't shield the record from the prior one. Meaning it's like a common sense kind of thing. And you know what I thought of, and I bet you have too, is right before you became, I think my timing is right before you became Secretary of Public Safety for Deval Patrick, what Governor Patrick did, and I assume you were involved in effectuating it, is change the criminal offender record system, the Corey record system, where employers Well, can you explain this? I mean, it seems to be analogous to me about what you did over a period of time so that people who did have a criminal record, but life went on, were not, screwed in their employment search forevermore because of one mistake they made in the past. Is that a fair description of what happened like 15 years ago?
Yes, a reform of housing laws or eviction law in the housing arena is a lot like Corey reform, in as much as the harm that comes to people from landlords simply knowing that a record is out there, regardless of whether or not they have the ability to read it accurately, it works a detriment to people because, just the stigma of knowing that someone has a criminal record.
Mm-hmm.
So Corey reform was a part of a long, burdensome process to kind of straighten that out so that landlords were only, in some cases, weren't entitled to see anything about a record, and in some cases were only entitled to see certain kinds of crimes depending on their nature and severity, and employers as well.
Yeah.
Especially in arenas like, being a school bus driver or, having exposure to children. And that's the same thing here. And I also noted that I didn't read through the entire bill, or the law, but it doesn't say that landlords can't ask tenants about eviction proceedings. Now, if a tenant tells you something about an eviction proceeding and you later end up having to evict that tenant, it's not, if you find out that they lied, that is something that could help you as a landlord. If they lied about an earlier eviction or being at fault in an earlier eviction, if you don't have access to that record, that should help you in trying to evict that tenant. It then becomes relevant in a court proceeding. You may not, if they lied to you. So it doesn't completely disadvantage landlords. It may in the moment if the tenant lies to them about being at fault in a previous eviction, but later on, I would assume that the tenant's lie about that might become relevant in proceedings with that particular landlord.
I didn't know you could ask, but the value of that is, at least if the way you find out is by asking, you actually have a conversation where a human being can explain what happened to them, and hopefully there's a landlord who is decent enough to understand, well, maybe that was aberrational, or maybe it's not a behavior that continues. So if you're right about the ability to ask, asking is better than just reading a piece of paper and ruling somebody out on their face. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if you can ask.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see anything in the coverage. I read this in another story. I saw nothing in the coverage that prohibited it. Now, I might be wrong that there is something that that just didn't show up in the stories. But if you can ask, then you that may become relevant in a subsequent proceeding with the landlord if the landlord seeks to evict you.
We're talking to Andrea Cabral, obviously. This Rumeysa Ozturk thing this is the woman, everybody knows this now, it's the woman who was snatched off the street in Somerville, the Tufts student. And after this, and she's been, I did the math the other day, she's been in that prison in Louisiana for more than 45 days already for having the audacity to co-sign a pro-Palestinian not pro-Hamas, as Marjorie has cautioned everybody repeatedly, even though that, is not, you have the right to say
Political
that,
opinions,
even though you may not
First
like
Amendment.
it. She's been in that jail in Louisiana for more than 45 days. Quickly, if you can, every time something decent happens in this case, even though it's not decent enough, in my opinion, because she's still incarcerated, on appeal, it gets reversed. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the court determined that she should be returned to Vermont, which is good on a whole bunch of fronts. In your estimation, is this actually going to happen, or is this going to encounter another roadblock?
Well, as with all court orders, it should happen, right?
That's a very good
court
point.
has ordered it to happen. It should happen. This is the three-judge panel on the Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit.
Right.
The Second Circuit is comprised of Vermont, Connecticut, and New York. And essentially, they basically said the lower court was right. Her proceedings should be transferred to Vermont because that's where she was when they initially sent her, when the petition was filed, and they subsequently sent her down to Louisiana. So yes, the Second Circuit has said very definitively that she should be returned to Vermont for further proceedings, that if there are, this order does not stand in the way of deportation hearings that may occur in Louisiana, as she can attend those remotely. But she is to be physically returned to the state of Vermont forthwith. Now, as you say, that should be complied with, right? Well, now we're on the clock watching to see when and if that happens. And I'm sure that the government is going to try to take this to the Supreme Court.
You know, can I just say, reiterate something you said that I've tried to say every time we've discussed something like this? This is really important. Allowing people due process and other rights, free speech rights under, in this case, the Fifth and First Amendments, does not mean that if they've done something that is a deportable behavior under law, that they won't be deported. It just means they'll get their constitutional rights, and after the appropriate hearing is had, hopefully not while they're incarcerated, if they should be deported, then they'll be deported. This is not a bar to deportation forever. It's just a guarantee
of your day
that you're
in court,
and that you're afforded the constitutional rights that even undocumented people are entitled to.
You know, we got to go take a pledge break, but either we can ask you this before. I'll ask you this before. Maybe we can talk about it afterwards.
Think about it then.
Yeah, think about it. That's right.
I love that.
Yeah, a little moment.
She likes it
the
too.
hesitancy, which is clear, which seems clear to me, and you were working for the government when you were in the Suffolk County DA's office. The hesitancy to charge anybody with contempt here when they ignore these court orders is really beginning to drive me insane. So let's talk about that when we come back with Andrea Cabral, okay? And
you haven't brought that up before. I'm glad you're bringing it up.
I bring it up every day. It's really, I've got to go over the edge.
You are pushing us over
Anyway,
the
we're
edge.
talking to Andrea Cabral, former Suffolk County Sheriff and Secretary of Public Safety for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Going to take a quick pledge break. Going to come back to talk to her about my pet peeve, contempt of court. Listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Brighton studio, actually, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Think about it. For 3 hours every day, you get to hear thought-provoking conversations on local, national, and international issues for free. It only happens with your support. So please support your Boston Public Radio listening by calling 888-897-9424 or giving online at gbhnews.org.
I know what you're all thinking. The guy, our colleague, just said 3 hours of thought-provoking conversation every day. It's not always 3 hours of thought-provoking, let's face it. But we try. We really try hard.
Yeah.
And
here's how it goes. It's thought-provoking if Jim suggests the topic.
Now, this is horrible.
If I suggest a topic,
we had an argument about
disaster.
a topic. That's really not, that's in-house
That
business.
was really horrible, Marjorie.
I didn't say it was really horrible. Actually, I did say it was really horrible. And it was her
my idea. That's
okay,
why.
Fine. That wasn't the reason. Okay, what are we? We're talking about pledge. The number for you to give is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. The gift, or whatever it's called, the thank you thing today is for $10 a month or $120 all at once, an unlimited online digital subscription to the New York Times, which is great. And as I've said, every hour or every pledge break, if you already have one, then give it to somebody who doesn't have one. It's a really valuable, wonderful thing. But whatever you give or can afford, do it. If you can't afford a sustaining thing, which is our preference, which means a certain monthly amount off your credit card or out of your bank account, but you can only give one time X dollars, then give what you can. And if you can afford a lot more, then give a lot more to make up for those who are having a fairly tough time right now. And do it at 888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org.
Okay, this is my favorite part of pledge.
What is it?
Lots of people who pledge leave a listener comment. And I want to read this one from Karen in North Kingston, because I did this myself for so many years before I ever thought I was going to be on the radio. Karen in North Kingston says, I've often sat in the car listening to an NPR segment to the end before going into an appointment or to a store. Haven't you done that? I used to do that all the time. If I was listening to a particular show that I loved, because I used to listen to NPR, God, when I was in my 20s, a long time ago, and found some of the stories and some of the reporting so provocative and so fascinating. I would wait and wait and wait until it was over to go in. So thank you, Karen in North Kingston. Brian in Waltham says, I appreciate the balanced coverage of the news in a time when it is difficult to find nuanced views of the day's events. Melissa in Jamaica Plain, I value trustworthy, reliable public media. I'm hopeful that it can sustain with the support of many people like me, even if I only give a small amount. And you know why public media is important right now? Because the president is cracking cracking down on corporate media and like CBS.
He's cracking down on public media, too.
He's cracking down on public media. That's right. But he's also...
But we're not going to capitulate.
I hope not. Okay.
No, we are not.
We are not. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio, Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. If you're just tuning in, we're talking over Zoom to former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, and Marjorie is now going to ask her the same question she's asked every guest for the last 10 days.
Yeah, why doesn't, the Supreme Court said that Trump had to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia from that prison in El Salvador. That was days ago. He's still there and nothing has happened.
Wait, he's still there, and Trump said I could get him out.
That's
what
right.
he said to Terry Moran from ABC. So go ahead, Marjorie. Or Andrea.
So why don't they do anything? Why don't they put these people, why don't they hold them in contempt? Throw them in the slammer.
You ask me this pretty much every week, and I have the same answer every week. I don't know. I don't know what the holdup is. And there was another story this week about Judge Beryl Howard, who I just think the world of.
Me too.
Yes.
She's just been absolutely fabulous. A big part of the reason that she upheld the huge law firm Perkins Cole, their suit against Trump, retaliating against them and preventing them from getting federal contracts and demanding that they give hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees with this settle. He was seeking the same settlement with them as he did with some of the other firms, the Paul Weiss firm for one of them. She said, she basically did this comprehensive ruling that said, look, all of Trump's statements show that he is clearly under color of the executive power of law, retaliating against these firms. And these firms in their brief used all of Trump's previous statements to show what his intent was. And it was a big help in that decision for her to be able to say, this is wrong, it's unconstitutional, it violates their First Amendment rights. To your point about this particular situation with this tough student, that's the point I keep making about if this is an all hands on deck situation. So if all of the law firms had gotten together, they would have had many of the same results that Perkins Cole is getting in their court. And with regard to Rumeysa Ozturk, if all of the judges were on board with holding accountable the DOJ lawyers that are coming before them and anybody else in the executive chain who's in the decision-making process, then they would be speaking with a unified voice about how completely unacceptable and intolerable it is for any branch of government to tell the court under a lawful court order that they will not comply. That is what contempt is for. What Beryl Howard is doing with the Perkins Cole decision is showing that the court will not tolerate unconstitutional behavior by anybody, up to and including the executive in the person of the president. That's all you have to do is, in a unified way, within the other branches, say no, this will not stand. And that's not happening.
I think you answered this question, but I want to ask it more directly. There were 9 major law firms that we're aware of so far that have not only capitulated to Trump in word, but have agreed to put up, I think it's $950 million worth of free services to causes that are near and dear to Trump's heart as part of the deal. Based on this decision, even though it only applies to Perkins Cole, the reasoning would arguably or inarguably apply, it seems to me, to every other law firm who he's gone after, because he's admitted he's gone after everyone for retaliatory reasons because of who they represented, because there's a partner who's an a-hole or whatever it is who said unnice things about him. So if I'm right, how do they... You're a real lawyer as opposed to me. What do you think's going on in those law firms now? When they realize not only they give up hundreds of millions of dollars, they gave up their integrity, their reputation, the trust, the clients. I mean, what do you think is happening in those rooms?
Well, I think they should all be, deeply, deeply ashamed. They've disgraced themselves. They've disgraced the profession. And I think, part of their calculation that I don't think we've discussed before is although I've said, administrations live in 4-year increments. So they signed a settlement with the Trump administration to give up hundreds of millions of dollars of pro bono work for causes that Trump cares about. They realize that if the Trump if we ever have another free and fair election, and that's still pretty much up in the air if you ask me, if that does happen and the Trump administration is replaced by a Democratic administration, they won't have to honor that. So what they get, that's part of when law firms are dealing with settlements like this, they're deciding how down the line they'll ever have to spend that money that they've committed. And I think that was part of this. They were thinking in 4 years, he'll be gone. Hopefully there'll be a Democrat in the White House, and we won't have to honor that because the Democrat's not going to say that we have to support causes that a Democrat believes in because they understand that this is clearly unconstitutional.
Well, but if you're a corporate client looking for a law firm, would you not have to be out of your mind to pick one of the capitulators as opposed to one of the fighters? I want a lawyer who fights for me like Perkins Cole and the other 3 that are contesting. I don't mean this with an ideological bent. I mean, bottom line, I want somebody who knows how to fight rather than be a supplicant.
Right, but that I completely agree with you that this does nothing to help Beryl Howard's decision only reinforces how cowardly their capitulation was. But the point I was trying to make was clearly they're thinking about the bottom line. When they're looking at a settlement, they're thinking about what did we give up in the settlement versus what we stand to gain in the short term and in the long term. And in the long term, they may be banking on not having to give up all of that pro bono work, and in the short term still reap the benefits of the federal contracts and favor given to them by the Trump administration. And I think that calculation points up the very cowardice that you talk about that should cause clients to run screaming from them.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrea Cabral, I believe we are out of time. Are we out of time?
We can't discuss the Burger King lawsuit, unfortunately, which I am fully supporting.
Yeah, so am I, actually, oddly enough. Yeah, so am I.
This is a case where people said the advertisement showed a burger that was far bigger than the burger that they actually got. Let's do this next week with you.
More colorful.
And more, well, I don't care if it's colorful.
Well,
I care
think
if it's
people
big.
like that. It looked like it had
Big
a lot
and
of...
juicy.
It does look right. It does look inviting.
Yeah, it does look inviting, and then they got this kind of drab thing on their
Who's representing them, unfortunately? Paul Weiss is representing. So they're in real serious trouble.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrea.
Andrea Cabral.
Good to see you.
We've been speaking with former Suffolk County Sheriff and former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, who joins us every week. Coming up after a quick break, we're going to talk with 350.org founder, the great environmentalist Bill McKibben. He's got this great event coming up. We're going to tell you all about it once again. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you listen to Boston Public Radio 3 hours a day, that's 15 hours a week, 60 hours a month, and 720 hours a year. Maybe it's time you pitched in. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
Yeah, what are we going to do? We're going to interrupt?
Whoops, we're on here.
Oh, we're on. I
We're
wonder
on.
what we're going to do about
well,
the Pope.
I think actually you're on.
Oh, I'm on.
We're
Okay.
talking
The number
Pope.
again is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. That is the number to use or the website to use if you would like to contribute to what we do here at GBH. And you're listening to our program. If you listen to it a lot, maybe you want to, if you haven't so far, give a little support to the program because, as we say, we are under some threat from the federal government at the moment. And, 24 hours a day of radio is not cheap to produce. So it would be great if you are so inclined and you can afford it to give us some money. And we have today a great enticement. That's what I call it, the enticement.
That's what it was, yeah.
It is a New York Times, a digital subscription for an entire year for $10 a month. And what you get is not just the news, although it is great when you have it on your phone too. You can get, everything comes up so fast now. The breaking news.
We do it during the show.
I know. Well, we do it, to look stuff up during the show. Yeah, and then you can get other things, theater reviews, opinions, blogs. You can get the Wordle. Jim doesn't do it because it's too easy for Jim.
Marjorie started the Wordle at 6 a.m.
Yeah, he's a genius, and he's an evil genius, just like Donald Trump. Evil genius, and videos. And you can get the cooking stuff, and the cooking stuff is spectacular. Plus, it is a great newspaper. It is a family-owned newspaper, and it is not easy to be a family-owned newspaper these days, or to be any newspaper at all. For that matter. The deadline is 7 o'clock. After that, it goes away. So 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The governor will join us tomorrow from 12 to 1 at the library for Ask the Governor. We talk a lot on the show about the bad news out of Washington, from the Constitution to case of the next few minutes, the climate. But at least on that last point, according to our next guest, the newly minted Canadian Prime Minister, Mark Carney, could be a key figure in the climate fight. Carney has shown he's not afraid to stand up to Donald Trump, as evidenced by this wonderful exchange a day or two in the Oval Office.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, and having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
By the way, I know that was a prepared line, but when he said, I met with the owners of Canada, I love that. In any case, our next guest, as I said, here via Zoom, called Carney, quote, a world leader who knows more than any of his peers about climate change. That was a good sign. Of course, I'm talking about Bill McKibben. Bill's an author, educator, co-founder of 350.org and the founder of ThirdAct.org. He has a newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years and writes regularly for The New Yorker. Hello, Bill McKibben. How are you?
I'm pretty good, especially since I hear there's white smoke over Rome. So
I know. We have to get our fingers...
you've spoken a lot about, and Marjorie has too, about how important Francis was in the climate fight.
Stuff.
Is there one of the so-called finalists who's in his league on climate?
No, I don't know if there's anybody. And truthfully, when they announced his name, I don't think anyone knew much about him either. Although it was a remarkable moment, I can remember the chill that went down my spine when they said he'd been the first pope to take the name of Francis. For his papacy. I thought that augured well, and indeed it did. He arguably was the most important environmentalist in the world in the last 15 years, and his Laudato Si encyclical is, the great statement of the moral case for why we need to take care of the earth and the people on it. So we'll see what comes, but he left us great gifts to work with.
Well, as Jim just mentioned, too, you wrote in your Substack column very favorably about the newly elected Prime Minister up in Canada, Mark Carney. So what difference could he make? Obviously he could do good stuff for Canada, but beyond that, what could his impact be?
So it's an incredibly interesting question. And obviously his first goal, and the thing we have to hope most for him, I think, is that he figures out how to help put the brakes on fascism around the world. The Canadian election was a really important moment. And it was followed up, as you know, a few days later by the Australian elections, which had basically the same outcome. Around the world, Carney, just to review, Carney, who has some, who did his best to guide Britain through the aftermath of Brexit as their central bank governor, has a lot of experience in figuring out how to bring different people together. And he also has a lot of understanding and courage around climate. He really was the first important financial leader in the world to start explaining to the finance industry that it was putting itself at great risk if it didn't begin to address things here. In a world where America has absolutely absconded from any role in the global climate stuff, we're not going to the meetings, we're doing our best to, interrupt their progress, where we're going to play no role. The Chinese are obviously going to play the key role, but they're going to need to be some powerful voices helping guide that process. And I bet that Carney will, if he's able to consolidate things in Canada, emerge as one of those voices. Now, it's not an easy job. He's got a huge oil province, Alberta, that's always causing trouble and is currently threatening to secede from the rest of Canada if they don't get every pipeline that they want and things. But Carney understands that, and Canada seemed to speak in favor of a slightly different future.
You know, since you mentioned China in passing, you've written recently that on the climate front, there's some hope coming out of China?
China is, forget petrostates, Jim. China's emerging as the first electro state in the world. They've put up about 2/3 of all the clean energy on the planet in this decade, and the numbers are astonishing. So in the first quarter of this year, China used 5% less coal than they did in the first quarter of last year to generate electricity. They've got so many solar panels, so many wind turbines, and so many batteries that they're increasingly able to rely on those things. And it's showing up, that surplus of electricity is showing up in lots of ways. China also used about 5% less gasoline this year than they did this time last year. And the reason for that is more than half the cars sold in China last year came with a plug. They're electrifying at a electrifying rate. And if you want to really amuse yourself for a little while, go on YouTube and just Google China Shanghai Auto Show and look at the videos that people are putting up of what these new cars, which cost $15,000, $12,000, whatever dollars, can do. They have cars that are rotating 180 degrees in a parking spot. They have cars that.
Wait a minute. What does that mean? Rotating 180
You got to
degrees?
go look at it. They can move independently the wheelbase, around.
Wow.
And they've got, probably more usefully, cars now that can charge in 5 minutes.
I know.
That's the same amount of time it takes you to go to the Amoco and stick the thing in the side. So it's I've spent time in China. It's not the country I want to live in. I think there are enormous problems with a surveillance state of that kind. If I was in China, I would clearly be in jail, so I'm not arguing for it. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation is they have seized the future, and it's especially obvious at the moment when we've seized the 18th century. I mean,
so when you say
Trump's trying to bring back coal, that's absurd.
If they seize the future because they bought, I was going to say the rhetoric. I don't mean the rhetoric. The preaching of people like Bill McKibben that the bottom line is wind and solar is just cheaper these days.
And yes, partly, but they also remember the other part of this story that they've figured out is they don't want to be dependent on anybody else.
Yeah.
China doesn't really have that much oil, and so and in that context, it's worth remembering that 80% of humans live in countries that are net importers of fossil fuel, not like us, net exporters. So for most of the world, look around the world now. Do you really want to be dependent at this point on the United States for the supply of energy that you need going forward? What if the president just decides he doesn't like you anymore and tells the tankers to turn around?
So Bill McKibben, these constant texts I get from people, anti-climate people who say China's building another coal plant every single day, that's outdated.
Yeah, that's outdated.
Yeah, that's what
that's
I thought.
outdated. China is going to continue to use coal for a while. But they're now moving very, very aggressively.
And they also had those. I remember, kids that would do the 2 weeks or a month or overseas in China. A lot of them were going over there with gas masks practically because they were getting asthma because the pollution was so bad.
But this is the other half of. This is the other reason that China switched. The greatest threat to the legitimacy and power of the Communist Party became urban air pollution.
Yeah.
Because it was unbelievable. I mean, I remember being in Beijing when you literally couldn't see across the street. Like there were giant buildings there and you could not see them. That's changed. If you look at the list of the 25 most polluted cities on any given day now, none of them are in China. It's mostly now India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And give Donald Trump enough time, we may get some back on there again.
We got to take a break.
Okay, we have to
Marjorie.
take a quick break. I apologize, Bill, for a pledge break, but we're going to be right back talking more with Bill McKibben. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Live, local, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Jim Braude, Marjorie Egan, Boston Public Radio. It's here on GBH Radio because of your support. Now's your chance to keep the conversation going. Give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
That number again, 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. I want to thank again the people who donated and took the time to donate and leave a listener comment. They include, I mentioned some of them before, Melissa from Jamaica Plain, Karen from North Kingston, Brian from Waltham. Here's a friend in Brookfield, fair and factual reporting, which is so much more important today. Also the Brain Candy, Boston Public Radio, Wait, Don't Tell Me, The Moth, Code Switch. I mean, we have, Code Switch is a great show on the weekends, which is really worth checking in on. Charlene from Lynn, Democracy Requires Independent News that is correct. From Somerville, I would like to help preserve the great and trustworthy news source. I enjoy NPR so much and need to support it. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for taking the time to donate. The number again is 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And as we say, give whatever you can. Whatever you can afford is exactly what's needed. And for $10 a month or $120 a month, the gift, the enticement, as Marjorie calls it, is a digital subscription to the New York Times. And Marjorie and I clarified this morning. Whether you take all day to do the Wordle like Marjorie does or a couple of seconds like I do, doesn't make any difference. You're still entitled to the subscription. It's great. And let me say what I said earlier in the show.
Sometimes it's 2 days.
If you already have one, give it to your kid. Give it to a cousin. Give it to a neighbor. Give it to somebody who'd benefit from another fact-based news source. And the New York Times has not bowed down to Donald Trump, unlike another paper, a couple of hundred miles to the south, which does many great things despite that. In any case, it's 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. And in advance, we thank you. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Braude, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Again, Governor Healy joins us for an hour tomorrow from 12 to 1. We are still waiting for the identity of the new Pope, for him to get to that Vatican balcony. We'll share that with you whenever it happens. But in the interim, we're continuing our conversation with environmentalist Bill McKibben.
So, Bill McKibben, tell people, we want to give as much publicity as we can here to Sunday. What are you doing?
Sure. So, first of all, let me just add a word to your pledge break thing there. Everybody should always support public media, of course, but just to put it in context, it's under direct, immediate assault from Washington right now. So this is a moment when one needs to stand up for what one believes in all ways.
Thank you.
That's definitely what's happening with this Sunday stuff. And we had the most magnificent launch at Old North Church 10 days ago when the mayor of Boston, with her 3.5-month-old, clinging to her, pushed the button that turned the lantern in the steeple green and sort of started the 5-month countdown to Sunday, which is going to be a remarkable celebration of renewable energy and a remarkable push to make it, to make what's happening in China happen here, to make it much, much easier to put that sun and wind and batteries everywhere, so we don't need fossil fuel anymore. And part of that's just raising the profile. And we've been calling this stuff alternative energy for so long that we've started to half believe that. It's not. It's the obvious, straightforward way forward. But we also need to do a lot of work to make sure that it's as easy as it can be for people to do it. There's a whole series of it costs 3 times as much to put solar power on your roof in the U.S. as it does in Australia or in Europe. And the reason for that is that we have a lot of unnecessary regulations. The building inspectors out there 3 times, on and on and on. We figured out how to overcome these things. There's parts of the country, cities like Tucson, that have adopted good apps that allow for easy and almost instant permitting. And there, the rate of installations is doubled and tripled. And there's no reason that we can't do that all across the country. Obviously, Washington's not going to be helping out in the short run, so we need our cities and states to be doing the right thing.
Bill McKibben, I read an interview you did with Elizabeth Colbert in which you said something like, typical civil disobedience, I hope I don't get what you said mangled, in the time of Trump is maybe not the right or appropriate course. If I did get that right, what were you meaning to say, and how is Sunday going to be different?
Well, so as someone who's done a lot of civil disobedience over the years, the problem at the moment is that at least if you're aiming things at Washington, they don't care. They like this kind of opposition. So, for instance, you'll note that the big coalition of people, of which Third Act is a part, that's called for demonstrations on the day of Trump's military parade in Washington.
His birthday as well, yes.
Yep, and his birthday. They've called for demonstrations everywhere in the country except Washington, D.C. And the reason for that is they know that the Trump people would like nothing more than a kind of confrontation and so on. So it's not that people won't be doing civil disobedience. They will, and that's fine. But we need really at the moment a lot of other ways to wake people up to what's going on. So, on Sunday, there'll be a lot of things like parades of e-buses and e-bikes. Boston has all those big electric bus fleet now, and it should be out for a day just so that people can remind themselves what, ecological heroes you are when you ride the bus, when the e-bike is a unbelievable invention. We've invented a bicycle that has no hills in it, that's a hugely liberating piece of technology. So I think there'll be a few places around the country where we've been talking a lot with our great friends and partners at Protect Our Winters, who are the best outdoor athletes in the world. These guys are really good at climbing tall things. And I think they'll be up some places, doing some guerrilla installations of solar panels up on interesting places. That's civil disobedience of a sort, but a different sort. So the point is just, in the times that we're in, we need to be thinking about all kinds of creative strategies to get things across. And that calls for cleverer organizing. We were talking about Canada a minute ago. I've been talking with the last little while with people, including at Third Act, who want to do something on Canada Day. And I think the suggestion that we're coming down with is show up outside the consulates like the ones in Boston.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Let's just sing "Oh Canada" and remind our neighbors to the north that most of us are really happy with them, have no desire to take them over. And you guys are journalists enough to know that that's the kind of thing that will be irresistible to every journalist in the city to go out and shoot a few minutes of film of.
I love that line, bicycles without hills. That really is very appealing to some of us. Hey, Bill McKibben, I guess this is a positive, at least a temporary positive. I was reading stories in the lead up to Earth Day that the way that Donald Trump was going to be, quote, celebrating Earth Day, among others, was recommending or mandating, which you can't do, a change in the 501c3 provisions, the nonprofit provisions of the Internal Revenue Code that says that if you're spending money on X, Y, and Z, you may be eligible for nonprofit tax-exempt status, and specifically excising the word climate from that list, which did not happen. Do you know why it didn't happen? And is it just a delay or is it a defeat?
It could well just be a delay, and of course, no one ever has any idea why anything happens in this administration. But if I had to guess, you'll know that I've been occasionally in your company critical of my alma mater across the Charles there in Cambridge. Harvard did a good thing in standing up to the president. And then hundreds and hundreds of other colleges piled in behind around this question, largely of tax exemptions and things like that. And they showed him that it wasn't going to happen without a fight. And it's possible that, it does seem to be emerging that the best strategy for dealing with bullies in this case is to be willing. Bargaining with them doesn't seem to work, and putting up some kind of opposition seems at least sometimes to be useful. So I think that it became clear that we were all prepared to fight back, and we are prepared to fight back in court and everywhere else. If Trump had an ounce of political sense, I think he would be figuring out at this point that he's overexposed on climate. We're going into hurricane season, Yeah. He's going to, in a way that no other president ever has, going to own everything that happens, because he's been assuring us that it's a hoax and we don't need to pay any attention to it. Well, when that hoax blows over your house, you may be in a slightly different mood than you were in November.
And by the way, just to reiterate, for those who don't buy the notion, we preach the same thing. I think you probably do a little more convincingly, that fighting with a bully is a far more effective strategy than capitulating. The great capitulator on the university front was Columbia. As far as I know, They haven't gotten their $400 million back, have they?
Capitulated for nothing.
So they've gotten humiliation, disgrace, lack of trust, and no money.
Yeah, and there's a collection of law firms that you'd have to be a sucker to go buy their services, because they clearly back down pretty easily.
So are you not wearing your Red Sox hat today as a commentary on what's going on, or what's happening?
We won last night, man.
Yeah, it's one.
And it's been a so month, and so sad to watch Tristan Cassis snap his pen in there. On the other hand, I don't know if you've checked, but despite the sort of slow beginning, we're only 2.5 games back of the New York Yankees.
It's exactly what the manager says, echoed by Bill McKibben.
So as with the sun, there's some real hope there, and we shall see. One of the reasons that I've been able to stay in the climate fight, I think, as long as I have, is that I was well trained for decades as a Red Sox fan. And then things started going good. So don't give up yet, you guys, on any front.
Hey, before you go away, is there a website, or will there be on this Sunday, where people can keep up to date? What is it that people can keep following?
It's a beautiful URL. If you go to sunday.earth, you'll find it.
Fabulous.
And along with registering your event for the day on September 21st, the other thing you can do right now is complete our logo for us. It's the logo for Sunday is half a sun, symbolizing the fact that we have the technology, we need the political will. But there's a drawing tool on there that lets you finish that sun, and there are now many, many thousands of absolutely beautiful drawings that you can look through and add yours to. And those are a big help. One of the things that, one of the points we're going to be making as we go towards Sunday is that this is a very beautiful idea. The sun is the most charismatic object in our universe. It already gives us light and warmth and photosynthesis, and now it's more than willing to give us all the power we could ever use. And there's something extremely beautiful about that. Not just rational, not just affordable. There's something gorgeous about that. And we're going to be, I'll end by saying, I have a book coming out in August. Apologies to George Harrison, titled "Here Comes the Sun." And in the course of researching it, one of the things I've happened across is the fact that song is, by a factor of 2, the most downloaded Beatles song on the web, twice as much as "Hey Jude" or "Let It Be." People,
it's a great song.
Single universal human experience. It's that when the sun comes out from behind the clouds and hits your shoulder, you smile, and so That you can't say about coal or gas or oil. We've got the charismatic power source, and we're going to make the most of it.
Sunday.Earth. We'll be looking forward to the book, too. Great to see you, Bill.
Thank you,
Talk
Bill.
to you soon. Thanks so much.
We have been speaking with environmentalist Bill McKibben, author, educator, co-founder of 350.org, founder of the thirdact.org. He has a newsletter on Substack titled The Crucial Years, and the website again is Sunday.Earth for the event September 21st. Coming up after 1 o'clock news, GBH arts and culture reporter James Bennett II joins us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
And this is the spring GBH Spring Membership Drive. We're taking just a few moments right now to ask for your contribution. That is how public radio works. Most of the money we spend to run this station comes from listener contributions. So we're asking for yours now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Zach Finn.
Trusted news sources are more crucial than ever. And NPR and GBH stand as beacons of truth and reliability, but to continue providing accurate and unbiased news, we do need your financial support. Right now, we have a goal. We're looking to receive 10 contributions in about the next 3 minutes, and your financial support helps combat misinformation. So very important. We're looking for 10 contributions in the next 3 minutes. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And these are challenging times for public media stations such as GBH as we face multiple efforts in D.C. to eliminate our service, including revoking essential federal funding. While we don't know what will happen, we do know that you can help us prepare for any changes by becoming a sustaining member. Help ensure GBH's future by giving $5, $10, or $15 per month, whatever works best for you. 888-897-9424 or make that gift online at gbhnews.org.
And today only, we're going to thank you with an annual online subscription to the New York Times with your contribution of $10 a month to GBH. The facts right now so very important. It's why you listen to GBH. New York Times is a perfect companion to that listening. So give $10 a month. Give $120 all at once if you prefer. Either way, get that call started. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
And becoming a new member of GBH makes you part of a larger cause. When you support GBH, you make a statement that goes beyond one person's thirst for knowledge. You are joining a large and vibrant community of people who believe the station is an important part of what makes Boston special and relevant. Call 888-897-9424 or make your gift online, gbhnews.org.
Please take 2 minutes of your time and make a contribution to GBH. We just need that little bit of contact information and how much you'd like to give. You can sign up as a sustaining member right now. Get that call started again, 888-897-9424 or go online, gbhnews.org.
888-897-9424 or gbhnews.org. You'll be helping us reach our goal. We're down to just 6 more people left to hear from to wrap up this goal in the next couple minutes here. 888-897-9424 or you can make that gift online. Easy to do there at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you and Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts and working to connect industry leaders to graduates, elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate. And Norman B. Leventhal Map and Education Center at the Boston Public Library, presenting Terrains of Independence, a new exhibition that uses maps and geography to explore the why here questions of the American Revolution. LeventhalMap.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Boston Public Radio.
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio. We're training artificial intelligence to think for us with massive implications, not just for work productivity, but our ability to think creatively, to make art, to flourish as humans. We'll talk with GBH's news culture reporter, James Bennett II, about the people cheating their way through college with AI and the broader implications of AI and art.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Am I the A-Hole Day? This time, Jim thinks I'm the a-hole. There's this little patch of grass on my street, a little curb strip, a dog peed in the flowers I'm trying to grow. I asked the owner to end the urine poisoning of my plants. She declined. Who's the a-hole here? The dog owner or me? Or really? We all know the right answer. As always, it's Jim. That's next in the third hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
I'm Lakshmi Singh. Voices erupt in Vatican City. A new pope has been chosen. Here's NPR's Jason DeRose.
White smoke began billowing out of the chimney atop the Sistine Chapel a short while ago, signaling that the 133 cardinals cloistered there have made their decision. The newly elected pope is expected to appear soon on the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square and offer his blessing to the city and the world. Before then, the cardinal electors sing a hymn of praise known as the Te Deum and approach the newly elected pope to pay him homage. Just before the new pope steps onto the balcony, the senior cardinal deacon will appear and declare Habemus Papam, Latin for "We have a pope." Jason DeRose, NPR News, Rome.
Swiss guards in striped uniforms and a marching band dressed in rich blue clothing taking part in a procession, part of the grand ceremony to celebrate the significance of the moment. The election of a new pope to succeed Pope Francis, who died Easter Monday at the age of 88. President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced a trade deal between their two nations. NPR's Tamara Keith reports it is the first deal announced since Trump launched a global trade war, but the deal isn't actually done.
Trump was in the Oval Office with the UK's Starmer on speakerphone. Both hailed the deal, but Trump let slip that it isn't actually finalized.
The final details are being written up in the coming weeks. We'll have it all very conclusive, but the actual deal is a very conclusive one. We think just about everything's been approved. So good for both countries.
The agreement will open up markets for American agricultural goods like beef and ethanol, while the U.S. would lower tariffs on vehicles from the U.K., think Rolls-Royce. But Trump is leaving in place a 10% tariff on all imports to the U.S. Tamara Keith, NPR News.
TikTok may be facing another ban in the U.S. next month, but for younger voters, it's more than just a social media app. It's a political tool. NPR's Windsor Johnson with more.
Online platforms, especially TikTok, have become powerful tools that young voters are using to organize, amplify, and mobilize around causes they care about. Iona Literat is a professor in the communications department at Columbia University. She says members of Gen Z don't draw hard lines between their digital and real-world lives.
For young people today, that just doesn't make sense. That's totally out of sync with their experience. There's not this clear threshold anymore between the online and the offline. That's definitely applicable to the civic aspects as well.
Literat says youth-led groups have been cleared to lawmakers. Ban online platforms like TikTok, and you may lose an entire generation at the ballot box.
It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. We are waiting for the announcement of the new El Papa. And as soon as that is announced, we will take you to the Vatican with Jim and Marjorie. Springfield has lost months of work and expectations now that the Trump administration has terminated a $20 million environmental grant that had already been awarded. We have more from Karen Brown.
Springfield was among the only cities in the Northeast to win the grant, released during the Biden administration. City Housing Director Jerry McCafferty says the money was going to concrete health needs, including the city's high asthma rates, lead poisoning, and other air quality issues. But she says they received official notice last week the grant was being canceled because of, quote, different priorities under Trump's EPA.
The community identified these needs, really wanted to address these needs. I think our whole community was really proud of having come together to get this grant. So it just really feels so disheartening.
McCafferty says there is no other money to do the work. The city plans to appeal the decision before considering legal action.
That was Karen Brown with Connecting the Commonwealth. Lawmakers on Beacon Hill exploring legislation that would ban cell phones in public schools statewide. The Globe reports that Senate President Karen Spilka told Boston area business leaders yesterday that the idea of banning students' use of cell phones in schools has broad support. Even Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey backs reining in students' use of phones while in class. At least 18 other states have already passed laws limiting phones in schools. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. A couple of quick programming notes, Jim. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. Maura Healey, the governor, is going to join us between noon and 1 for another edition of Ask the Governor. Attorney General Andrea Cabral is with us May 21st, and Mayor Wu is with us May 23rd. Between then, we're going to be talking with Josh Kraft, who is running for mayor. He'll be with us on May 13th. Hello again, Jim.
And by the way, we are waiting for the new Pope
Yes, we are.
to emerge and give his original, first comments from the Vatican balcony. We'll bring that to you live. Remember the word I told you I learned from my former colleague Artie Saul the other day?
What?
Telling word papabile, which means popeable.
Popeable.
So we'll find out who the most popeable actually ended up being in a second. We're actually going to talk about related things. We're on Zoom with James Bennett II, arts and culture reporter for GBH and co-host of The Culture Show. Hello there, James. How are you?
Hi, it's the third hour, the finest hour, the final hour, the culture hour.
That's right, the culture hour.
Wow.
Absolutely. And you are our culture man, James, and we want to time it perfectly so that we're talking about Conclave when the new guy comes out on the little porch there. So tell us about Conclave, the movie that was nominated for a bunch of Academy Awards. Didn't win Best Picture, but it was nominated for lots of things.
Yeah, I also just want to preempt this and say this was not planned. We did not infiltrate the Sistine Chapel so that we had a perfect lead-in. This is honestly what an insane coincidence. But yeah, Conclave was a movie that I think it premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival in the fall of last year and then got a wider release in the winter. And everyone was into it. It is a movie, it's a gorgeous movie of palace intrigue and the proceedings that go into selecting a new pope. You got some backstabbing. You got some, questionable.
You got your backstabbing. You got your thriller. You got your.
And it's such an interesting phenomenon to me because, the United States, it's the largest Protestant nation, and it historically hates Catholics. Like there was a whole colony. The original 13 devoted to being a Catholic haven.
That's right.
The province or the colony of Maryland. And I was thinking about why we kind of culturally, right, are obsessing so much over both this movie, and by extension the conclave that I guess just wrapped up now, And to me, the idea comes down to we're watching this movie and we're experiencing several things that we actually want, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. Some Americans want a legitimate majesty and an unchecked hegemony. Other Americans want a legitimate or good faith debate. And the moderates among us, I think, just really want to heal to this idea of ideological coexistence, which are three things that seem impossible in this modern America and which are on full display in this movie, this gorgeous film that's, set in the Vatican, contrasting with kind of that brutalist, modernism of Washington D.C.'s federal buildings, and
yeah, those are great points. Actually, great. Well, did you really see it 3 times?
I saw it the third time just for you two.
Okay, thank you. And you've called it gorgeous over and over again. So is it that contrast that is?
By the way, Marjorie's seen it. I have not. But go ahead. I'm embarrassed.
I thought it was terrific too. But is it that contrast that you found appealing, or is it the visuals, or what?
I think it's both. I think it's the carriage, of the individuals that, a billion people, right, have kind of put their faith in, if not directly, right, then by proxy. The thing that is really striking about that movie, even among all of the politicking, which we should say, I forgot who it was in the Washington Post, did point out that the politicking in that movie is a bit exaggerated. It happens in the weeks before the conclave itself. It's called, think about this. They were only locked in that chapel for 2 days, but there is this sense of people coming together with this carriage of knowing what they're doing. I was looking at a poll recently, 31% of Americans approved of the job Congress is doing right now. That was April 2025. It might've been Gallup. And that just signals to me that you want the bureaucracy to work. It's like there's no good faith on Capitol Hill, right, among Americans of all stripes that anything can actually get done. And we're going to figure this out. 2/3 majority to select a new pope. Can you imagine, anything coming up in the United States right now that requires 66% of people to not just to pass a procedural vote or to pass a vote to enact a law, but to pass, an idea or a bill that literally is integral to the continuing of the republic, it's insane. And it's I think we're all just kind of watching it by proxy, no matter, again, what side of the political spectrum you find yourself on, because there's something there for you.
By the way, the balcony is still empty. If people are curious, all the television cameras are trained on the balcony, and the crowd that is wildly cheering in the plaza there, which I assume will quadruple in terms of wildness. Were you not? By the way, I just realized. Were you not there in Italy visiting one of your kids?
My son
Francis's
was there. I got there the
ascension?
next day. My son got there when he was overseas, doing the year abroad thing.
About that.
When Francis was picked, and they all ran down to see Francis picked. And you know what I thought was interesting? Because I got there the next day, and you hear about the Italians. The church, take it or leave it. They're not that big into it. A lot of Europeans, but it was so crowded, James, that day. They had cops directing traffic down the subways of people, because it was like you couldn't even move in the subways to get to St. Peter's. I think it holds 250,000 people. And if you didn't get there right away, you were not getting inside that square. You were 250 people. They had jumbotrons on the streets outside. I was amazed at the crowds that they were there for whatever reason. They were there. It was huge.
And I can only imagine the logistical challenge that awaits, again, because, not only is there a new pope that's about to be announced, but this is also a jubilee year, right? So it's a pilgrimage for so many people, not only to, I guess, celebrate that or to observe that, but also to kind of get a glimpse of Big Papa.
I'm just thinking, I read the other day, I'm sure both of you knew this because you're much more into this than I am, unfortunately, and I'd like to be into it more than I am.
But if you saw the movie, that would help, Jim.
Well, maybe I keep saying every day I'm going to do it. Francis, you know what his first, I read this and I had forgotten his first words, this momentous moment: brothers and sisters, good evening.
Good evening.
By the way, the doors are opening, I believe.
Oh, okay.
And we're about to see a pope who we will not recognize, but we assume the news.
Is it that Parolin guy?
I don't have any idea who it is. We'll know in a second. We have a pope.
We have a pope.
They've said it in Latin, and we're sorry there'll be dead air for a second because we don't know who it is yet.
Yeah, we need to know who it is.
And he is.
Would you say his name? Oh, it's not him? It's the
Secretary of State.
We're all excited. It's the wrong guy.
Oh, he's going to say we have a pope. Stay tuned, James.
Okay. I'm on standby. Let me pull up some news myself.
Okay, this is Dominique Mambertel. He's the Cardinal Proto-Deacon.
We have get him out
here.
He
just said that, yeah.
We're waiting.
Okay, there it is. Okay, we have a pope.
Eminentissimum. The most eminent. Ac reverendissimum and a reverend. Dominum Robertum Franciscum. Sancte Romane Ecclesiae.
The first American pope has been elected. Cardinal Prevost.
Qui sibi nomen imposuit.
Who has chosen the name?
Decimum quartum.
Cardinal Prevost, the first American pope.
Oh my God, it's Prevost from Chicago.
Oh my God.
This is a pope
elected as the
from Chicago. He spent most of his career in Peru. And the sad part, I'm sorry to say this, but we did some time looking into his history yesterday. He's not so good on LGBTQ stuff.
No, he's not.
And his record on sexual abuse stuff is not spectacular either.
And you know what's really scary about
this?
this
from Chicago.
Is that there was a lot of talk about the conservative Catholics with a lot of money pushing certain people. So I don't know enough about that to go into it. But what do you think, James? Are you
about this guy?
Are you a biblical scholar over there? What do you think?
When I was a kid, I wanted to be, actually, but it turns out that not many secular colleges allow for that as a major. No, I am personally surprised. I think that a lot of the conversation that
Wait a minute, Kupich from Chicago? Kupich.
What?
Who did they say? Who is it?
There's only one. I'm sorry, no, it's Prevost. It says
he picked a name.
Oh, what name did he pick? Leo the 14th.
Leo.
Wait a minute.
What's the significance? It's Prevost.
It's Prevost. Okay.
Yeah, it is Prevost.
It's not Kupich. Okay.
No.
I'm sorry. I thought it was going to be Kupich.
Yeah, it is Prevost. I'm sorry we're so confused.
Yeah, we should get something as soon as we can about Prevost a little bit more.
Yeah, doing this. Yeah.
Okay, so
we're going to hear from. You're going to let us know, our colleagues, when he's about to speak. And by the way, one of the other things about him, this is one of the good things. I believe he speaks 6 or 7 languages. So I am guessing that the first language we hear may not be in English. He's 69 years old. As I said, he spent many years in Peru. He was the bishop of a major city there. And obviously, everybody knows he'd be the first American pope. That's pretty stunning, I should say. But it's particularly sad if what we read yesterday is true about his position on 2 central issues that have dogged the church correctly in recent years. It'd be really disappointing if the first American pope was as troubling as he appears to be on at least a couple of major issues. They do say, CBS News is saying this, though. He presided over one of the most revolutionary reforms Francis made when he added 3 women to the voting bloc that decides which bishop nominations are forward to the Pope. In early 25, Francis again showed his esteem by appointing Prevost to the most senior rank of cardinal, suggesting he would at least be Francis's choice. Well, that's interesting, according to CBS News. At least suggesting that he would be Francis's choice and any future conclave. And as I assume almost all of you have read, of the 133 voters, is that the right number, James, Marjorie? I think it was, eligible to vote. Something like 80% of them cardinals had been chosen by Francis.
Yeah, and so we assume this has the Francis stamp of approval.
Well, that's exactly what CBS News is saying.
And obviously this is a pretty fast choice, too, because sometimes even with Francis, it took, I believe, longer than this to get here. So we're going to go back. We have some other things to talk about.
Well, how are we going to do this, actually? Maybe we should, or what are we doing about pledge breaks? Can somebody, since we haven't heard I guess we should stay on the air because he's going to speak and we want to get live.
I was dying to talk to you about the Met Gala. So we talked about this the other day. They're supposedly about.
It's because Marjorie knows someone who was there.
I do.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but black dandyism, and I thought talking about it the other day that since Trump is after everything that has to do with anything to do with DEI or anything to do with, he's not exactly been a friend of the black American. I like the fact that they didn't change things around, that they just went forward. They don't get a lot of federal money, but they still did it, and they didn't shrink away. So what was your takeaway? What is black dandyism, and what do you think of the Mets celebration?
Not shrinking away got them, to raise some $31 million. I think that was the projected amount, which I think is the most that the Met Gala has ever, raised for the Institute, which is huge for the arts just in general, But quick thing about black dandyism. I was listening to, an NPR interview with Michelle Martin and Ruthie Carter, and they were talking about how. The name for this Met Gala, super fine, right? The celebration of black dandyism. It comes from the title of a book by a Barnard College professor named Monica Miller, who, by the way, is a guest curator, or was the guest curator for the Met exhibition, right? Oh. She wrote this book. Yeah, she wrote this book called Slaves to Fashion, Black Dandyism and the Styling of Black Diasporic Identity. And it takes a look at this idea that, back in antebellum America, enslavers would often kind of dress, their human chattel, these enslaved people up in this very elegant dress, as kind of a display, of their own wealth. And so Black dandyism then, she argues, is the reappropriation, kind of the clawing back, of that kind of aesthetic and, the practice of making it their own. And so there's a lot of different ways you can kind of slice it, right? Like dandyism itself, not even black dandyism, but dandyism itself, it emphasizes like these leisurely romantic pursuits, this emphasis on grooming and style. Honestly, I would say that it's almost like a transcendent masculinism. You look at the red carpet looks, the Met Gala looks this year, and like this idea of black dandyism being a place of expression, of signaling, of the flex, right? This is a spot where wearing straight black tie doesn't work. Like you look at all of these looks and you see someone like Tom Brown or like Usher. Like, sorry, Usher, but like a tuxedo with a white scarf like isn't going to cut it. And it's fun looking through all of the different celebrities and influencers and, notable individuals that show up and just kind of getting an idea of like, who understood the assignment. Like Rihanna definitely understood the assignment.
Love that.
With Child announced. Keith Stanfield's and Brian Tyree Henry, I think, were exemplary of that for me. Brian Tyree Henry with his red kind of get up, and, Keith Stanfield had this, kind of white flowing dual capey thing. Dapper Dan, who I think exemplifies this idea, the haberdasher in Harlem, in New York, styled so many influential men in hip hop, LL Cool J and Jay-Z and Eric B and Rakim. This is a spot we talk sometimes, and it's a joke, right, about how when you have to go to a gala or a wedding or, like, dare I say, even a funeral, working in this gender binary, women's wear, there's so many forms of expression. There's so many different ways you can style your gown, the cocktail dress, the accessories, the hats. And it's like, when the dude in the couple is getting ready to go to this event, it's like, I'll be ready in a second. I'm just throwing on a suit.
That's right.
It's right. And so this is like an opportunity to kind of expand beyond that, to kind of seize this expression, because you think about it again, this romanticism, this idea of kind of inhabiting the bon vivant within you, that's an expensive pursuit. That is historically a white pursuit. If you show up like that as a black person, maybe back in the day, the thought is, wait, aren't you supposed to be with the help? How do you have the time to, picnic and drink champagne and, party and charm your way, between the hours of 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.? So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's also telling, right, that you had pointed out that they decided just to kind of go on with it full throttle and rake in more money than they have for the Institute.
Can I return for a second? Because I've absented myself from this conversation to take a look because I don't want to misrepresent the allegations against the new Pope. Here is, on LGBTQ issues, the New York Times reported this week that in 2012, admittedly, a year before Francis became Pope, Cardinal Prevost expressed disappointment that some Western media held, quote, sympathy for beliefs and practices that are at odds with the gospel, in particular, the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children. And that, but in fairness,
let's hope he's changed
that was
his
13
mind.
years ago, but that is the most recent we know.
That was under a pope who talked about disordered relationships and stuff like that.
And
Benedict.
in addition, this is from SNAP, which we have great respect for, the Survivors Network of those abused by priests. SNAP has alleged that Prevost failed to act against abuse claims involving Richard McGrath, who was a former president of Providence Catholic High School, allowing him to remain in his position despite longstanding accusations. So we don't have the most current on the new Pope, Leo XIV, but we do have some history. It appears
there's never been an American.
Here he is. He is on the Vatican balcony. The crowd is going wild. And we're going to take coverage from CNN to hear his first words. Again, he speaks many languages, including, obviously, English. He's from Chicago. Here it is. Obviously, you hear the crowd is cheering wildly. The Pope, the new Pope, Leo XIV, is on the balcony. He's waved most of the time. He has looked fairly emotional when he's hearing the cheering. He has yet to speak. We're going to bring that to you live, courtesy of CNN, in just a second. And again, this is the first, I know you all know this, but it's pretty stunning. First American Pope. We mentioned yesterday that he was in the bottom tier. He was thought of the bottom of the top tier of candidates. We learned today he was a favorite of Francis for a number of reasons from CBS News.
Well, that's a good sign.
Well, I hope. We shall see. He's about to speak.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Peace be with you all.
Fratelli, sorelle carissimi.
Dearest brothers and sisters,
Questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto.
this is the first greetings of the resurrected Christ, the good shepherd who has given up his life for God. And I should also like this greeting of peace to enter our hearts and your families and to all those people, wherever they are, all peoples throughout the world. Peace be with you.
Questa è la pace di Cristo risorto.
This is the peace of the resurrected Christ, a humble and perseverant peace which comes from God, God who loves us all unconditionally.
Ancora conserviamo nei nostri orecchi.
Let us keep in our ears the weak voice of Pope Francis that blesses Rome.
Il Papa che benediva Roma.
The Pope who blessed Rome gave his blessing to the world, to the entire world, that morning of Easter. Allow me to follow up on that blessing. God loves us. God loves everyone. Evil will not prevail. We are all in the hands of God. Therefore, without fear, united, hand in hand with God, and amongst ourselves, let us go forward. We are the disciples of Christ. Christ goes before us. The world needs his light. Humanity needs him like the bridge to God and his love. Help us and all others to build bridges with dialogue, with meeting, to be one common people, living always in peace. Thank you to Pope Francis. I should also like to thank all my cardinal brethren who have chosen me to be the successor of Peter and to walk with you as a united church, always seeking peace and justice, seeking to work with men and women who are faithful to Jesus Christ, without fear, to proclaim the gospel, to be missionaries.
You're listening to the inaugural remarks of Pope Leo XIV. The American Robert Prevost just picked as Pope. We're bringing you live coverage courtesy of CNN.
Augustine, who said, with you I am a Christian, and for you a bishop. And I think in that sense we can all walk together to that homeland, that home which God has prepared for us.
Alla Chiesa
to the Church
di Roma,
of Rome,
speciale.
A very special greeting.
Dobbiamo cercare insieme come essere una chiesa missionaria.
We have to seek together to be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges and dialogue, always ready to accept, like this great piazza with its arms. We have to show our charity, presence, and be in dialogue with love. And I'd also like to say a greeting in Spanish to all those who, and particularly to my dearest beloved diocese in Peru, where a faithful people accompanied their bishop to share their faith with him, and who has done so much to be a faithful church. To all you, brothers and sisters of Rome, of Italy, of the entire world, we must be a synodal church, one which goes forward and which always seeks peace, charity, and to be close to those who suffer. Today,
il giorno della supplica alla Madonna di Pompei.
This is the day of the supplication to the Madonna of Pompeii. Our Mother Mary always wanted to accompany us and be near us, to help us with her love. And I should like to, therefore, pray together with you. Let us pray for this new mission, for the entire church and for peace in the world. And let us ask for this special grace from Mary, our God.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia,
Hail Mary, full of grace.
Tu sei benedetta fra le donne, e benedetto il frutto del
You are
tuo
blessed amongst all women, and blessed be the fruit of your womb. Holy Mary, pray for us sinners, and be present at the hour of our death. Amen.
We believe that is the completion of the first remarks from Cardinal Prevost, who is now first American Pope. Leo XIV, is he still speaking? Our apologies, just very hard.
To all faithful who are present and who receive his blessing through radio, television.
This is not the Pope speaking. In any case, you heard that. We're still joined by James Bennett II. Let me just say one thing before we bring James into this conversation. I did a little looking here. The comments the New York Times reported about LGBTQ, same-sex couples, the, quote, homosexual lifestyle, we've seen nothing in the intervening 13 years that contradicts what he said then. In fairness to him about this covering up this sexual abuser, Richard McGrath the diocese that Prevost was part of, Pope Leo XIV, denies all of the allegations against him for what's that's worth. James, you heard this. Do you have any thoughts on either the initial words out of the mouth of the new pope or anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple things that I want to hit quickly.
Sure.
The first is, with regard to his more conservative, I suppose, stance on LGBTQ issues, that's not surprising. It's kind of in line with, tradition, the tendency, right, of the College of Cardinals, right? For every maybe more liberal leaning, I guess you can call it that, pope, they want to select someone that's a bit more conservative, and like vice versa. But what really stood out to me, right, is that this new Pope, Leo, he concluded his remarks kind of at the end with advocating for a more synodal church, which was like Francis's like big thing. This idea that, church affairs should, at least in some part, kind of be participated in by like this participatory body. There should be this conversation, this debate, and that kind of should inform, the direction of the church moving forward. And obviously, the pushback to that is, well, what if, you come out of such a debate with something that is very anti-traditional? So, yeah, maybe a bit more conservative than Francis in some respects, but it's pretty, clear that he shares a vision that the previous, Bishop of Rome had with the direction moving forward with how but like how the church itself engages in debate with, other ideas. Two more quick things I just want to say.
Oh, sure. Take your time.
Yeah, the historical significance of that name is huge, I think. There's this idea that's been, we've been reading about it in the past couple of weeks about the name you pick, what it signals. Like, what was the previous pope like who had that name? And it flips two ways here. Pope Leo XIII, I think, was pope from 1891 to 1903. And his big thing was like this encyclical that in English, right, is called Rights and Duties of Capital and Labor. Very pro-union, very anti-communist, but also like unchecked capitalism and like, laissez-faire economy, right? Just the rights of the workers, the protection of the people that kind of make the machine go. It's very, I guess, if you want to think about it, socially forward in that time of turn of the century industrial revolution. And the other quick thing is that Pope Leo XIV was also a name claimed by an anti-pope. There's a lot of, not a lot, but I guess there's a, number of people that identify as Catholic, but do not necessarily accept the legitimacy of the Pope in Rome for, many reasons we can't get into. And so sometimes a claimant will come up and say, no, I'm the real guy. And I think back in the mid-2000s, someone did emerge that took the name Leo XIV. And so to me, it's significant. Like, that can't be an unknown to him. And so for him to pick the same name as an anti-pope might be his way of maybe signaling a coming together. I don't want to say maybe it's not necessarily conciliatory, but it is kind of like closing the loop. Kind of putting the definitive mark on, I am the guy. So those are two things with the name.
Well, I have a third thing I would like to, before you go, since you've provided much more insight than I ever could have. How many minutes do you think it'll be before Donald Trump claims credit for having the first American named Pope?
If we're betting, we can go to the MGM, casino after this.
I'm serious, by the way.
I'll put the over under at 45 minutes. I know he's supposed to be heading to the Middle East, so I don't know what his Wi-Fi situation is in the air right now. But as soon as it's down, we're going to see something on Truth Social. And lastly, I do wonder if that played a part. Being able to have an American English speaker in the president's ear, especially after that weird AI generated tweet. Of him as the
yeah,
Pope.
that's right.
They might be playing that to their advantage, perhaps. Someone that won't, listen to the Vatican. So that's not lost on me either. Good point, Jim.
James, we're always happy to have you. We're particularly happy to have you today. Thank you for your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you tomorrow. You co-hosting the show tomorrow?
No, not tomorrow. I'll be back the week after, I believe.
Great.
Okay.
James Bennett, Culture Show and related kinds of wonderful things. Great to see you, James Bennett.
Jim is going to go see Conclave this weekend. Doesn't want to be too, doesn't want to rush in.
I'm not going to go. Do you know streaming? Have you heard of streaming?
You'll sit in your house and watch it.
I will.
Okay.
James, great to see you.
James, thank you so much. We have been speaking with GBA's arts and culture reporter, Culture Show co-host James Bennett II. James, thanks again for being with us.
Can I explain what's happening here for people
ahead.
out there?
I could use explanation too. What is happening?
First of all, people are, we have an audience of
I don't think we can
troubled people.
I don't think we can do a-hole now.
People are saying, stand for something, do a-hole. We're not doing it. And it's not because we're people of great principle. We just don't have time.
We don't have time.
So
it's a great one, though.
A-hole, it is a great one. It involves actually real-world things with Marjorie.
That's right.
We're going to do it tomorrow at the end of the show, the last half hour tomorrow. And by the way, last minute, we'll say at the end, the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, Catherine Clark, obviously from here, will join us in person at the library tomorrow at 1. Governor Healy, 12 to 1. Congresswoman Clark from 1 o'clock to roughly 1:30. We're glad to have them both. When we come back, we only have a few minutes left after pledge. If you have any thoughts about the election of the Pope, if you know, we only know those few things we've mentioned. We promise you by tomorrow we will fill in a lot of blanks. We'll talk to you about it more, but that's coming up right here, 89.7 GBH.
It's time to support Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener contributions pay for the program and keep it on the air. You don't have to give much to make a difference, but please make a difference by giving now at gbhnews.org or by calling 888-897-9424.
So, in the middle of all this, it is pledge time, and you heard that number. You should write it down if you're not planning on giving in the next few minutes, which would be nice if you did. 888-897-9424. I'm sure you can remember, gbhnews.org. We ask you for contributions in normal times because somewhere more than 70% of our budget comes from listener support, and that really matters to us. It's sort of the guiding principle. It's of and by the listeners. And number 2, because our need may be greater, needless to say, we don't know what the outcome is going to be about Trump's crusade against public media. But regardless, we want you to do it because we need it, and we want you to do it because we believe it's the right thing to contribute to something that has some value in your life, and we hope we and our colleagues have value in your life. And the way to show that is by giving whatever you can. And again, if it's a tough time, give a few bucks one time. If you can do more, do $10 a month or $120 all at once and do the New York Times annual digital subscription. And if you can do even more than that, do that too at 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org.
We have some more really kind comments from listeners. One of them is John from West Roxbury, who says, the current regime's stepped-up assault on factual reality must be vigorously pushed back against. The desire to end funding for PBS, NPR to muzzle a voice long known for informing the public should give us all pause. Also, says John, I could not live without Jim and Marjorie Antique Roadshow and the PBS science programs. We have one of the best going as Nova. It does so much great work on science. A friend in Nashville says, I began listening during the pandemic. I took comfort in the easy relationship between Jim and Marjorie, the up-to-date pandemic information. I continue to listen. Guests are always well-informed and given adequate time to discuss topics of interest. This is from someone in Stowe. Great, truthful news and commentary. So these comments, these listener comments mean a lot to us, and they mean a lot to the station because we are a fact-based operation here, and facts are under siege from many quarters, including from the White House at this particular time. So we very much appreciate your donating. Whatever you can give, it really means a lot. 888-897-9424, gbhnews.org. It only takes a few seconds to give because we've got this machine well oiled at this point, Jim.
Didn't you say operators are standing by?
That is correct. At 888-897-9424.
She has no idea if they're standing by. We believe they are.
You said they were sitting by. I believe they are standing by.
Maybe so.
Or you can give online at gbhnews.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We only have a couple of minutes left, maybe a half hour ago, roughly. A new pope was chosen, Leo XIV, from Chicago, spent much of his career in Peru, the last couple of years working very closely with Pope Francis. The most positive thing I've heard is that he was Francis's choice.
Yes.
Because despite...
AP is reporting that.
Oh, they are as well?
Yes. In early 2025, Francis again showed his esteem to Provost by appointing him to the most senior rank of cardinal, suggesting he would at least be Francis' choice in any future conclave. And I want to mention, he's...
By the way, if you have any more insight than we do over the next few minutes, give us a buzz, 877-301-8970. But we're pretty much doing this on the fly. But go ahead, Marjorie. I'm sorry.
Well, it mentions in one of these stories that, Americans have long been a taboo. There's been a taboo against American popes, given the geopolitical power already wielded by the United States. But nonetheless, they picked an American this time. And I want to mention, he, for a long time, was leader of the Augustinian religious order, and it was founded by the 13th century Saint Augustine. And I mention that because Saint Augustine gave one of the great quotes of all time, if you ask me. Well, he was kind of, he was like Saint Ignatius. He was kind of a man about town,
What is that? I don't know the quote.
And his mother was very holy. So he used to pray, Saint Augustine, before he became a saint, of course, Lord, make me chaste, but not yet. That was his prayer.
Can I ask you a question about the selection of an American?
What?
So Catholic numbers in the United States are down.
Yeah, Peru.
So they're up in Latin America and in Africa.
In Asia.
So they have not chosen the Pope from Asia, Africa, or Latin America. They've picked a Pope from a country where the numbers are in decline and whose president, even though he denies that was the intention, mocked the papacy during the mourning period for Pope Francis. So how do you think the average person is feeling in the Catholic Church around the world today?
I think people that like Francis, that like his liberalism, we don't know that much about this guy, but I think at this point they would be much more happy. And then there are the right-wing Catholics. There was a whole thing on TV about the Catholic manosphere, all these, right-wing Catholics that think women should basically sit down and shut up, and they're very anti-birth control, and they're like these traditionalist Catholic or the Opus Dei crowd, or some of the people in the Federalist Society that pushed a lot of very conservative Catholic judges onto the Supreme Court. We'll see, because I'm not an expert on this guy, but they would not, I would presume, like this guy because he's not conservative enough.
Well, by the way, Jamie just pointed out to me, obviously, Pope Francis from Argentina. I didn't mean historically. I meant today, where the growth is. They didn't pick from any of those three regions.
Asia, and Latin America.
Yeah,
and a lot of Latin Americans are becoming different kind of Catholics or Protestants. A lot of Latin Americans in the United States are leaving the Catholic Church. It's too dull.
Well, also, the other thing that meant a lot to me, like as an agnostic, the outreach that Francis did to the poor, almost, how quickly was he washing feet after his elevation?
And how quickly did he go to that island where the migrants would come in Italy, and some of them drowning offshore, and he went and washed the feet of women in prison. And, that seems like not that big of a deal. Until recently, no women were getting their feet washed by the Catholic Church. It was only men that were getting their feet washed by the Catholic Church.
Well, let's see what is obviously early actions are symbolic, great symbolism. Let's see what he does. I am troubled by what he said in 2012 about the, quote, homosexual lifestyle, his words, and about what the allegations are around sexual abuse. I'm dying to see what people like. Well, did you see the Anne Doyle, who we have known from years for her brilliant work from Bishop Accountability? Did you see who her choice was for Pope?
O'Malley.
Which was really surprising to me. Maybe we'll get to talk. She is in the Vatican. Maybe we'll get an opportunity to talk to her tomorrow. But I'm wondering what people who have fought for decades against the abuse in the church think about this election. We may be overplaying this. I'm just telling you the facts as they are, that he was alleged to
Here's a texter.
Covered up the abuse of this McGrath character.
I believe they voted in an American Pope to combat issues with our current president in the United States. And then we have a lot of people complaining about we're not doing them in the a-hole. Clearly,
I know. It is really pathetic.
Our audience, that's what they want. They want,
well, it's sort of what we want too, but we didn't have enough time. So we promise you tomorrow we will revert to our usual lower road. Is
my God.
Is that okay? Yeah, the show's over.
We didn't have time, folks, for Am I the A-hole? Because the show is is over. But anyway, thank you very much for tuning in today. I'm sorry we didn't have time for Am I the A-hole?
Tomorrow.
But, it's kind of there's not a new pope every single day. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll save it. That's right. We'll do it tomorrow.
Said that
We'll keep up with this 24/7 by way of, I was busy looking up the pope.
I got it.
24/7 by way of our podcast. Check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we're live at the Boston Public Library. Governor Maura Healey is going to be with us from noon to 1, taking our questions and yours. We'll also have a special Boston Calling edition of Live Music Friday with Latrell James and festival organizer Mike Snow. And we're going to be joined by she number 3?
Number 2 Democrat in the House.
Okay, number 2, even better, Democrat
Catherine
in the House.
Clark.
That would be Catherine Clark, local Congresswoman. She's going to join us, too, to tell us what's going on.
In person.
Yes, she's going to be there in person. We're very excited. Yeah, so it'll be right in a row. You see the governor, and then you see Catherine Clark.
It's incredible.
It's going to be a power show, Jim.
It is a power show.
Power women.
You know what they both are? I was just going to say
Estrogen
that.
surge down at the Boston Public Library.
Who do you want to thank?
Estrogen
We're almost
surge.
done.
Zoe Matthews, Ed and Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, John the Claw Parker, Patrick Lally, our executive producer, Jane Bologna. The Culture Show is going to be on right after us with Jared Bowen as soon as we are done. I'm Marjorie Egan.
Jim Browdy.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you can tune in tomorrow and have a great afternoon.
And this is Boston Public Radio on GBH. Listener support is the most important and largest source of funding for GBH. So please take a few minutes and give right now. When you do, you will be one of the many people who help to keep Boston Public Radio on the air. Call 888-897-9424 or make your gift online at gbhnews.org. I'm Maeve Buckley, and I'm joined by Sonia Lee.
And your contribution right now is even more important to help keep Boston Public Radio on the air. On May 1st, the White House signed an executive order to revoke critical funding for public media stations such as GBH, claiming bias in our news coverage. You should know that our editorial independence is non-negotiable. We report stories that keep you informed every day without fear or favor. That is the promise of a free press in a democracy, and GBH delivers on that promise. Right now, we're asking you to stand up for a free press and for GBH by becoming a sustaining member or increasing your membership or becoming a new member or making an additional gift. Stand strong with GBH now at gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And the goal right now is 15 contributions in the next just about 7 minutes now. We need the financial support of everyone who relies on GBH to keep this important service on the air and available to all. GBH has been your source of credible news, and your contribution right now will help to keep it that way. Listener contributions empower us to investigate, verify, and report the truth. So please give now. Help us meet that goal. Again, it's our final goal of today's Boston Public Radio here. 15 contributions in the next 7 minutes. 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
And if you want to support Boston Public Radio and get in on the online subscription to the New York Times, this 1-year subscription, well, this is the time to do it. You only have 7 minutes left to get the Times and support Boston Public Radio. $10 a month as a sustaining member. You get all access to the NewYorkTimes.com content, and this is a perfect companion to your listening. You give, we take down that paywall. You can read as much as you want across all your digital devices. But again, you only have 7 minutes left to pick up the Times during Boston Public Radio. $10 a month, the one-time gift of $120. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And no matter what happens, GBH reporters are on the ground gathering the critical information you need to stay informed and aware in our changing world. You turn to GBH every day because you trust that we will deliver the facts and share diverse voices. News coverage of this intensity takes resources. That's why we're taking time during this membership drive to ask for your financial support. You are essential to our work. So please sign up as a new sustaining member by giving just $5 or $10 per month. Then you'll feel so great you're helping to make this station possible. 888-897-9424 or sign up as a new member online at gbhnews.org.
And Boston Public Radio is a unique program. You don't even find this kind of show on other public radio stations. We're really lucky to have Jim and Marjorie and the interesting guests that they have, from political folks to arts and entertainment, everything in between. And we're live radio. So we can we can pivot. We can bring you live coverage of events that are happening right now, including we just broke away so that we could hear Pope Leo's first remarks. So this is pretty incredible. This is live radio, and Jim and Marjorie are able to respond in the moment. And this is thanks to listener support. If you value that, then we ask you to please step up and make a contribution to ensure that we can keep doing what we do. You can join and give online at gbhnews.org or call 888-897-9424.
Please support GBH by becoming a monthly sustainer. This is a great way to support the station. It takes just a couple of minutes to set up. You can consider starting at $10 or maybe $15 per month, and it's automatically deducted from your bank account or credit card, and you'll be set up in no time. Call 888-897-9424 or give online at gbhnews.org.
All right, let's get a little rally going on here. Kathleen in North Brookfield, thank you for your gift. We have 9 more contributions. This is the last goal of Boston Public Radio today. It's been going really well so far. 9 more contributions. We have just about 4 minutes left. And if you want to show you're a fan and get your contribution in to make Marjorie feel good, well, this is the time to do it. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And ask for the online subscription to the New York Times as our thanks for that contribution of just $10 per month as a sustaining member, or a one-time gift of $120 all at once. Now, this is only available as our thanks today. It goes away at 7 o'clock, but you're listening right now. You can support your Boston Public Radio listening and ask for that online subscription to the New York Times as our thanks. 888-897-9424 or make your gift online at gbhnews.org.
Kate in Belmont, thank you. Kate loves Jim and Marjorie. Also, Asha in Hopkinton for facts. Several serve local flair and humor when we listen to Jim and Marjorie. Thank you so much. And also Lydia Natick says giving donation in response to Marjorie. So let's hear some votes for Marjorie here. gbhnews.org or 888-897-9424.
And this is great. We're down to just 5 more people we're looking to hear from. This is fantastic. If you have yet to make your gift of support, join the rally, join the cause here, and support your listening and show that you are a fan of Boston Public Radio. Just 5 more people to hear from in the next 3 minutes. We can do it. We need to hear from you. If you have yet to give, 888-897-9424 or make that gift online, gbhnews.org.
All right. And you can get in under the wire here if you want to pick up this online subscription, this annual subscription to the New York Times, and support your Boston Public Radio listening. You can still do that. That's $10 a month as a sustaining member, or a one-time gift of $120. Facts are important. It's why you listen to GBH, and the New York Times is a great companion. But again, just a few minutes left to support Boston Public Radio and get the Times. $10 a month, $120 all at once. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424.
And GBH's most important source of funding is listener contributions. So your donation is more important than ever. We know not everyone can give right now, but if you have the means, please make your contribution. Your support will help us maintain our service to you at a time it's needed the most. So please make that gift right now by calling 888-897-9424 or make that gift online. Easy to do there at gbhnews.org.
Oh, Megan in Attleboro, thank you. Robert in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, thank you so much. And we have made the goal for Boston Public Radio. This is great. You can still join in. You can still throw in your hat and cast your vote for Marjorie. gbhnews.org, 888-897-9424. And last call on Times, right, Maeve?
That's right. Ask for the online subscription to the New York Times while you're supporting your Boston Public Radio listening here. Make that call, make that contribution. Again, that's $10 per month as a sustaining member, or one-time gift of $120 all at once. Call 888-897-9424. Again, that's 888-897-9424, or make that gift online at gbhnews.org.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, Outliers author Malcolm Gladwell, and freed Russian political prisoner Vladimir Kara-Murza. BostonSpeakers.org. And GM Roth Design Remodeling, Dreams Delivered, with custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.